You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 403, the Book of Boba Fett Epilogue, or the Epilogue of Boba Fett, if you will. We are going to finally do kind of a season finale wrap-up, if you will. So it's more of a retrospective look, more of a discussion than it is a review, if you will. So it's been a very interesting season, or book, or series. I don't know what we're going to call that. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But I felt it was probably at least worth kind of coming back and saying, okay, now that we've gotten the entire picture, how did we feel this thing played out, and how did we enjoy it, and what do we like, what do we didn't, that kind of thing. So I'm pretty excited about it. We got some other cool stuff. We got some news in here. There's a special guest that I've been teasing about. And speaking of special guests, please welcome Jonesy to the show. Jonesy, welcome to the show. I know you don't even know who the guest is, and I've left you in suspense all week.
I have. It's killing me, man. And I thought he laid little breadcrumb trails, because everything has to mean something, right? This is what we see about Star Wars. This is how I see Albert Padilla.
Mm-hmm.
And
the
fooled
details
me.
matter.
Yeah, the details matter. So we're going to see what exactly this all comes to here. But how are you doing this week?
I'm good. I'm actually excited about this whole episode, really. Even the news. We got a lot of news to talk about.
Yeah, the news just kind of came out of nowhere today.
Yeah, it was kind of been an avalanche, almost an avalanche, but at the same time, it was all kind of compacted into the last 2 days, 24, 48 hours.
Yeah. That's the thing about these Thursday shows is that seems to be the thing. We get these things on Wednesday, Thursday these days. So it's, I don't know. I guess that means keep doing it on Thursday.
Yeah, it works for me if it works for you guys. So, okay, so before we get started, I did want to say a very quick congratulations and a welcome to Sadie Mae, and I hope I've said her name right. So if you remember, Jonesy, when you were on a sabbatical, we had a number of guests that kind of cycled in through here, and they were kind of it's all coming to you now, huh?
Michaela?
Yeah, so Michaela was one of the people that had been a guest host for us during that time, and she and her husband just gave birth to Sadie Mae, the baby girl. I think she's now, as of now, she's only 7 days old. Oh, so wow. A special congratulations and welcome and happy birthday to baby Sadie, mommy and daddy. So
congratulations, guys. That's super exciting. Yeah, I knew she was pregnant. I totally blanked that it was coming up due right around now.
Yeah. So she just posted a picture a couple days ago of just the baby, and then she posted one just 2 days ago of her and the baby together. So they look happy. They look healthy. Awesome. What a blessing. So
yeah,
congratulations. If you're listening, I know you're listening because you listen to the show.
Right. I mean, you got nothing else to do. You just gave birth. So
yeah. I mean, you're getting all kinds of sleep right now. I know it. Okay, so let's get into Star Wars news now that we got the personal stuff out of the way. All right, let's talk about Phase 2 of all the books and comics that have been announced for the High Republic. And this is something they told us that Phase 2 was coming sometime in the fall, and we were thinking about October is kind of we were estimating based on the comic book. They had the Star Wars show, the High Republic show aired. Was it this week? It feels like it was last week, but I forget now. Yeah. It's kind of all of a blur. But in that, we finally got our sneak peek at the covers, I guess, for the most part. I mean, the titles. How about that?
A lot of blank pages, yeah. Black pages lot of blank with titles, pages.
Yeah. So let's go through these just very quickly because there's not a whole lot here. And the first one that was brought up was Christina Baver. Baver is the host of the Star Wars weekly or daily show or whatever it is.
This Week in Star Wars.
This Week in Star Wars. Thank you. The name was escaping me.
Yeah, Kristen Baver. Yeah.
And she's now got, she's authoring this art of the High Republic, which is interesting because it is a collection of all of the concept art that we've seen, plus some of the character reveals that they've been kind of showing us through the High Republic show as well. And then I'm hoping there's going to be even more than that. I'd love to see some really deep concept art, kind of like what we saw when we saw the, remember the original Drengir pictures, right? Where they're very elaborate. I think they use some of that artwork in like some of the smaller novel collection type books. But I really want to see some of that stuff. I mean, I don't mind the character shots, right? And the character stuff, but I kind of want to see that really deep concept art that they were just throwing out there for ideas, right? And,
Right.
and conceptualizing that sort of thing.
Well, because it's so cool because you never know what they're going to come back and reference in the future.
Yes.
Right. I mean, because that's always the cool thing is that there's a lot of things that are going to go unused, but I also like seeing the evolution of some of the characters and some of the design choices as well, especially when it comes to things like starships or the Drengir would be an interesting one too. Of maybe Markion Row or the Nihil in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of those things would be really cool to see just what the iterative process looked like, and that's what's always fun because then you also get these elements of different parts of storytelling that maybe they chose not to pursue or maybe will come back around in a different way. So the art of books are always tons of fun. There's always a ton of great information in there as well as just beautiful artwork in general. The concept designers always do such an amazing job.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they've got all of them. We won't name all the art. Well, I guess we should. Ian McCraig, Aria Arendito, who we talk about quite a bit from the High Republic comic. Harvey Tolabao, and I apologize if I screwed that one up. And then they've also got some interviews in there from Justina Ireland.
Justina, there we go.
Yeah, Daniel Day Lewis. Jeez, man, let me just start let me start this whole show over if you don't mind. Daniel Jose Older, Claudia Gray, and Kevin Scott. Oh, and Charles Soule. So they'll all be having little snippets in there. Yep, the high five. Yeah. Let's see, and yeah. So I mean, I think both you and I collect the art of books, so this is a no-brainer for me, right? I'm gonna pick this up, and I can't wait for it. Oh, we got a first look at Pika and Joss from
we did.
The Fallen Star. Was that how you envisioned them?
No, it's definitely not. Especially after well, I mean, they were in Light of the Jedi too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
No, not what I expected at all.
Interesting. Well, we had to wait this long, but we got a picture of them.
We did. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the books. So the first one they've got listed here is Path of Deceit by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. And if I remember correctly, this is a young adult novel.
I believe so, yeah.
So not a mid-grade, but a young adult. And I don't know, we didn't get a whole lot on that one. Again, just the title, the authors, and then the cover not final. We got Quest for the Hidden City by George Mann.
Right.
I think that was a mid-grade, if I'm not mistaken.
Believe so.
So we'll see how that one is. Again, nothing there. And we'll probably tease this up here in a little bit about what we're doing with the High Republic here very soon with some friends of ours. I don't know, maybe we shouldn't just because it's not finalized, but oh yeah, it's finalized. We can talk about it. Okay. And then the last book is Convergence, and that is the first adult novel in phase 2. And that's by Zoraida Cordova, who has done a couple of Star Wars books now. She was doing some of the stuff in the From a Certain Point of View.
Right.
Our
first one not from Kevin Scott, Claudia Gray, or Charles Soule. Yeah, so different style coming in, and we'll have to see what this one looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. Convergence.
Yeah, and what's really cool though is that Claudia Gray is going to switch over to the Dark Horse comics.
Yes.
With Quest of the Jedi.
Yep. There's one for you. No one was expecting. I mean, everybody was talking like, what? Claudia Gray's going to be writing a comic? Not that she's not capable of doing it, but I was expecting they were going to tag her to do one of the novels, right? Or something, not the comic book.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting one. And then like DJO now is going to do, I think we've talked about this one before. He's doing an original graphic novel for Dark Horse as well. And then, of course, Charles Soule is going to be working on the Portalingo comic, which we still don't have a name for. And Kevin Scott will keep working on the High Republic, the mainline series as well, with Marvel. Yeah. But that's going to relaunch in October, I believe. So we are going to have a bit of a hiatus here pretty soon, I think, which is weird because we've not had really much time off from High Republic stuff.
Yeah, it
seems like.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it.
Well, and part of that's because these books are just so jam-packed full of things. I mean, Light of the Jedi, we spent roughly, 10 years like going over. Rising Storm, we could have spent 20 years doing over. And now we've got Fallen Star, or is it Rising Storm, and then Fallen Star. We were just talking before we go on air, like, okay, how do we want to break this book down? Because there's a few different ways, but it doesn't really have all these different locations and everything else going. So how we organize it, but there's so much packed into it that you don't want to miss something, but do we really want to go chapter by chapter and whatever, that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I'm super excited about though, is issue number 15 of High Republic. We are supposed to be able to see the Leveler for the first time.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
or
We'll
Shri Karai Karai.
Shuri Cry, which is now the official name, right? Not in the spoilers there, but I don't want
Oh,
to spoil
it actually has a meaning, right?
Yep.
Like, is that a spoiler? Because that book's been out for a week or two now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a comic book too, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, the levels are also called the Nameless, is another interpretation of them.
Which there is a quote from the, what do you call it? From Master and Apprentice. Or is he the Master and Apprentice or Dooku? But one of them has one of the prophecies mentions the Nameless.
Really?
Yeah. Because we talked, well, sorry, but we did talk about it in the show. Because we were trying to figure out who the Nameless was. And I think we were theorizing that the Nameless could be people that were non-Jedi or something like that. I don't remember what we were. It was late night, but
yeah. So I mean, so that's tricky because Cavan Scott did Duke of Jedi Lost, and then didn't Claudia Gray do Master and Apprentice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to blame Cavan Scott because he's just the easiest one to blame. It's all his fault.
Yeah. Let's see. I was trying to pull up the quick quote here. Yeah. Only through the sacrifice of many. Yeah, boy. The chosen one shall come, born of father. No, that's the wrong one. Oh, here it is. Only through the sacrifice of many Jedi will the order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless. There you go.
That sounds spot on.
Done to the Nameless, though. Huh.
Yeah.
What's the sin done to the Nameless?
Right. And which was that?
Oh, why would you ask me that? I don't know.
It seems like
Master. It was Master and Apprentice. Yeah.
That sounds like
in 2019, Claudia Gray.
That's that's a fun deep cut.
It is.
Nicely done, sir.
All right. Well,
what else is in here? We got, I guess, another publications that are coming. Eye of the Storm 2, High Republic, which is marking a row, comes out here soon. And then also we've got, I think that's March 2nd. And then Edge of Balance 2 is coming out next week, actually, February 22nd.
Is it really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. The first one was okay.
It's digital. Yeah, it's digital. Print doesn't come out for a little while after that. For some
reason. Got it. Okay.
Yep.
All right. What else we got? We got...
Well, do you want to stick with books real quick? Go a little out of order here. With Star Wars Timelines, which we had mentioned Kristen Baver. She's also involved with this project too. This is coming out in November. And what's really cool about this one is that this is it doesn't sound like it's a super, it's kind of like a visual guide, but it's also exploring everything from, and this is a quote, from the time before the High Republic to the fall of the First Order. Why won't they just come out and say the old Republic?
Well, I think the Old Republic, it denotes like a very specific time frame of like thousands of years. So I don't know, unless if you consider anything before the High Republic, the Old Republic, then yeah, I would agree. But I don't think they're going to go that far back. I think
it was just an interesting choice of words.
I know. They may put in there that, we may see an entry for when the Darksaber was created, and it may be very bland, basic, 1,000 years ago Darksaber, or we maybe get something that even further back, a mention of somebody like Darth Bane, because he has shown up in the Clone Wars. You know what I mean? So they may touch on some of that stuff, but I don't think they're going to dig deep into any of that piece of the timeline.
And a couple of the examples they gave us were, following the history of the Skywalker saber, and what was another one they gave an example of? This is all coming from StarWars.com, so it's all out there, and it was all again from This Week in Star Wars, but. The evolution of the TIE fighter, from the tracing of the Death Star plans as they moved around and whatever. So it's kind of an interesting concept book of, what are we going to see and what are all of the different elements they're going to give us. So I think that's a kind of interesting, it's a different spin on some of the other material that we've gotten. And so the folks doing this is Kristen Baver, Jason Fry, Cole Horton, Amy Rishow, Clayton Sandell.
Sandell, yeah.
And that's going to be from DK, which is pretty typical for all of the visual dictionaries and all of that stuff. All usually come through DK. So, yeah, but it's going to span everything: saga films, live action series and TV, animation, books, comics, games, everything. So it's kind of more of an encyclopedia of sorts. I'm curious how thick this thing is going to be.
Right, that's what I was thinking too.
I haven't seen I doubt it's got it on pre-order or anything like that.
Yeah, the cover's pretty rad. We don't have a cover of it, a picture of it to throw up for the live feed, but if you get a chance, go look at it. It's definitely channeling some 80s vibe for me there in the way it looks.
The pre-order on Amazon UK is £35. So
it's a pretty heavy book.
Not an inexpensive book. Oh, wow.
Oh, sorry.
You're so clever.
I'm such a dumb American. So
No, you're just
yeah.
an American that thinks he's smarter than.
Yeah, there you go. That's every American. I'm definitely going to buy this book.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
just
I don't
seems
think
so
it's.
cool.
I don't think you can pass on it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is another one. Yeah, Jeff said it. He said so many good books coming up this year are going to be hard to keep up. Yeah,
Gonna
yeah.
be hard to
And-
keep paying for it all. Yeah.
Well, yeah, true.
Save your pennies, folks.
I think those are worthless now.
pennies.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah. Do they even make them anymore? I mean,
Well,
actually,
there's
they
a
were.
shortage right now. And
Yeah, they were saying they were stopping accepting them in a lot of places. So I'm like, why don't we just kill it off then?
kill it with fire.
Let go. Just let go.
Yep. Okay, let's stick with novels. And the next thing we're going to talk about is one that okay, so there is a book coming out called The Princess and the Scoundrel. And this is the courtship of Princess Leia 2.0. I'm calling it that. I don't know if that's really what it's going for. And if you know what I'm talking about, I'm referencing the old Legends book now.
Right.
Where, so we're going to get the story of, I guess, right after the Battle of Endor. Leia and Han get married there on Endor and decide to go on a honeymoon. And this book is about really just them. That sounds all cool. And I'm super excited because the what is it? Beth Revis is the author who's writing this. She's a sweet woman. I mean, she's just head over heels and over the moon on Twitter with anytime somebody tweets it. There was a fan account that was created called the Princess and the Scoundrel Watch account or something. And she was freaking out about that someone had created that. And I mean, she's just having the time of her life.
It's it's super palpable. Yeah.
Right.
It's so fun to see people get enthused like that. But yeah, there's a catch.
However, and I'm glad you texted me this today, and I wasn't going to mention anything because I want to save it for the show, but I think we're on the same wavelength here. It wasn't until I started reading the details that I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right then, because they are going to take their honeymoon on the Halcyon. Halcyon, what is it? Just the Halcyon, right? Halcyon?
Yeah, the Halcyon, yeah.
The Galactic Star Cruiser thing that Disney is putting forth, the $6,000 ticket, two people, whatever.
Are cramming this thing down our throat.
Yeah, and then I thought, well, then I don't know if I want to read this. I didn't realize that's what I hadn't read all the details yet. I was just like, okay, cool. We're going to get that story of what that was like and, the honeymoon. And
that's the thing. They've crammed this thing just in so many different ways. It's on High Republic. It's what towed Starlight into position, right?
Yep.
And so it's in the High Republic, and now it's in all these other material, but it's just a marketing engine. And I get it. It's Disney. I get it. It's Star Wars. But man, it's happening a lot with this Halcyon cruiser. And I'm sure it's just we all know it's just to spur enthusiasm and to make it feel like it's part of the Star Wars universe and it's just part of what's going on. So when you go, or if you go, it feels like you already know it. And from that respect, I understand that, and I can kind of appreciate that. But oh my goodness, it is literally like in everything. And then we've got this comic series that is just, I can't say what I really want to say because it's not family appropriate, but it's just, it's just kind of wagging its own tail, if you will.
Yeah.
And it just rubs me in a way that is not feeling good. So I'm probably going to avoid this. And there's no disrespect to Beth Revis, and her enthusiasm is just contagious. It's fantastic. And, which is going to suck. Yeah, it's going to suck that this has kind of got this hovering over it.
So I don't know. I'm still, because it has Han and Leia, that's the pull for me, first and foremost. And Dante's right. We've had the Batu books. He says we've had books about Batu. Yeah, we had two of them. We had one by Delilah Dawson, and we had one by who we were talking about earlier, Zoraida Cordova, Crash of Fate and Black Spire. And I didn't pick up either one of those books.
Yeah, and there were comics too. Yeah,
true. So I didn't pick those books up, and for the same reason. Nothing. I wasn't like protesting or I'm not giving them my money for this kind. It wasn't anything like that. It just wasn't interesting to me. And I don't. Apart from being at Galaxy's Edge and being in that environment, I don't have almost zero interest in Batu, to be honest. And I know that sounds sacrilegious, but I just don't care. Like there's nothing there for me really. I'm much more interested in a lot of other things. And there's plenty of Star Wars out there, like we said. There's tons of it for everybody to enjoy. Different aspects. That's just an aspect that I don't really follow. And I feel the same way here, apart from the fact that it's got Han and Leia. So I probably will pick the book up. I mean, I think they've done enough now. Just throwing those two characters is probably enough for pull for me. But I do feel kind of, I don't know, I say dirty, but it just feels weird buying that book because had they not been in that book, I wouldn't touch this thing with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things we waited so long for Han and Leia. officially in the new canon to be married and explore that time frame just a little bit. But for it to be tacked on to a kind of a marketing engine bothers me. And Dante's absolutely right. With Batu and Galaxy's Edge, they were hitting it very hard. I've got a T-shirt for Galaxy's Edge, so I'm part of the problem, I guess, from that
Oh,
respect.
so you're the one.
I've actually got a nice print too. Like they did this like a Giclée type of thing. It's really cool. I actually got it framed. It's really lovely. Really lovely. But anyway, it's just weird, I guess, and it just didn't feel right until that came out. And maybe my opinion will soften. It'll change a little bit if it's just more of it's just the location of it, and they don't sell it out to be something else. But anyway, we won't. We probably need to harp on it anymore. But it kind of colored that one a little bit. That comes out August 16th, by the way. So if you're super interested in Han and Leia, August 16th is going to be your day.
I also wonder. Sorry, I know you said we weren't going to harp on this anymore, and I don't know if this is a harp, but when I think about Han and Leia, I think about their personalities. I think about they're just coming off, like literally probably days, weeks at most.
Yeah.
Arguably the most important pivotal time in both of their lives and the lives of the entire everyone in the galaxy. And the thing that they decide to do is go hang out on a
cruise ship,
the Love Boat, right? A cruise ship,
right? Yeah.
With all these other people. It just they seem like a couple that would be like, we're leaving. We're not telling you where we're going. We're just going to enjoy ourselves. To me, that would be the Han and Leia that I would expect. Not let's go hang out with all these other people at this, cruise ship. It just doesn't. I have a hard. That's the other part. It's like, okay, does it make sense? And I think I'm still going to buy the book. Hopefully, she'll convince me otherwise. And it's not going to feel like again they're just shoehorning this in there for the sake of marketing. But I just don't. It just feels out of character too. That's what they would do. I don't know.
No, I agree with that too. As soon as you had made kind of a halfway mention of that in a text, and I was like, that's absolutely spot on. Yeah. Why would they do this with people around and a luxury liner of sorts, is the way they kind of advertise it as? But when really it's kind of a freighter, isn't it supposed to just really be a freighter?
You know more than
sorts. I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
No, you do.
What else would tow Starlight Beacon into location?
True. Maybe it's just a glorified tugboat.
The tugboat. All right. Hey, so tell us about Legacy of the Sith.
Oh, boy.
Star Wars, The Old Republic has launched a new expansion. And your favorite, Albert Padilla, has been neck deep in it for the last couple of days. So
yeah,
please
it is,
enlighten us into your experience.
Well, so if you've been following the news and chatter, it has not gone over very well. So I'll just kind of say that. A lot of bugs, a lot of stuff that probably should have been tested, probably should have been captured. This is not unusual for this team, unfortunately. I say that. I mean, they've been doing this for 10 years. It's not like they've got all these new people. I mean, the people that are doing this are the same people that have been there the last 8 years, 5 years. So the storyline is a little short, but the last storyline was kind of short too, in my opinion. Onslaught. It wasn't a huge, long kind of single player. It is the next chapter in Malgus, and there's an amazing cinematic. If you haven't had a chance to go watch it, go watch it. It's absolutely gorgeous. Done by the folks over at IVL. Was it or Lucasfilm IVL, whatever it is? I forget the name. They did an amazing job on the CGI. They did some mocap.
LMX visuals or something.
Yeah. They did some motion cap stuff for it, but they've done that for the other ones. But so. It's got bugs. They've already patched it a few times. Those guys have come out and said, hey, we're sorry. We're doing our best. And they are. I mean, you can see the effort. They're putting the effort into it. They're working around the clock trying to get this thing up to where it's supposed to be. There were some other weird anomalies that were kind of happening graphically with some of the overhauling graphics. But I think the one thing that a lot of people are probably upset with, and I knew it was going to come, was that they overhauled the mechanics of each player class.
Yeah, this always happens. Yeah.
It always happens, right? And you look at all the bigger games, like WoW. I mean, if you go back to classic vanilla WoW and you play a character there, my goodness, it's an effort, right? And now it's like it's not. I mean, there's still mechanics and there's still stuff you have to do, but they've streamlined it and they've simplified it, right? And that's kind of what they've done here. They really took a lot of the complexity out of it, and I think that is bothering some people because it was one of those games where you could mash a button all day long, but there was some skill, right, that was involved with trying to use all of these abilities with a limited number of keys on your keyboard and your mouse and that sort of thing. So it's not unusual, I guess, right? I think all MMOs kind of go through this experience, and this is just happening again with the Old Republic. But
now, did they do a pre-launch patch where they introduced the new talent structures to where you could get used to them and start to pre-plan a bit to get people warmed up? Okay.
They had the test servers
that,
available. You could jump on the test servers just
yeah,
free.
Most people don't do that.
Most people don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, the PT
and
hours, yeah.
I would say I did it, and the GUI and some other things had changed even just 2 days before when I was on the test servers. When I went back to production on Tuesday, those had changed. So there were some last minute changes that were kind of shoved in there. So
yeah, it's always nice when they do give you, like, before the launch actually happens for an expansion. If they're going to do a complete overhaul, what World of Warcraft has done is they've done, like, in the part of their pre-launch in the weeks coming up to it, or maybe a month or so before that, is they go ahead and start adjusting some of the talent structures to get you ready for it. So it's not all as abrupt and in your face. Because I know when I asked you how the game went, you're like, I spent all night just respecking, basically.
Yeah.
And that happens, trying to figure out what should my spec be so I don't get just completely rickrolled every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because usually they make some of these enemies really, really tough early on. And, your gear quickly gets out of, you quickly out level your gear there.
Yeah, I probably spent about an hour and a half just trying to understand the changes to the class that I normally play, and then trying to figure out my best rotations and what some of the new abilities were, right? And we're probably laboring this too long here.
Right,
but
so how was the story though? How is the story? Did you already finish the story?
I'm not done with it yet. No, I'm not done with it yet. I've enjoyed it. It picks up again right after the end of Onslaught, and you get to know more about Bane, a little bit more about what his motives are, because he's neither for the Sith nor at least right now, in my opinion, he's neither for the Sith nor the Republic. He's got his own agenda, and he's about as powerful as you can be in as a Sith, right? So he's
Bane?
not a small fry to contend with.
This is Bane or Malgus?
Oh, sorry, Malgus, not Bane. Okay. My goodness, sorry about that. Yeah, Malgus. Who's a very deep character now. He's got a really rich background, given he's been involved in this for the better part of 10 years now. So
yeah.
But I don't want to dissuade anybody from trying it. The numbers are up on Steam. The downloads for it are just through the roof. So it definitely brought a lot of people in. And I think what I'm hearing too is it's getting high positive reviews on Steam, because these are new people coming in who have no kind of conceived notions or ideas of what the game is supposed to be like. The feedback you're hearing are for people that are coming from, that have been with it for a while. But the new folks like it.
You said this in the Patreon show too. If you were going to jump in and you were curious about it, this is always the time to do it, because you get free boosts. There's a lot of, usually the help and the tutorial aspect of it has usually been renovated at these points, and it's very friendly to newcomers. And you can really jump in and start participating and enjoy even some of the newer storylines. You don't have to go and rehash everything from level 1.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've plugged it enough.
Yeah. All right. Last piece of news
before we get to our special guest. John Williams. John Williams is doing, he's recorded the main title track for Kenobi, like Kenobi's piece. I guess it's Kenobi's theme. We'll just call it that. I'm sure it's got it probably has a different name, but he just recorded this last week, I think, in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So that's really the news. I think it's pretty big news, because he doesn't really do a lot of scores anymore. He's kind of tied to the hip with Spielberg.
Hasn't done a TV score in decades.
Oh no. Yeah, it's been Amazing Stories was the last one. That was like an 83. And he's got what do you call it next year? He's got Indiana Jones, and then he's got the Vanguards or the Bomb. I forget the name of Spielberg's next movie, and that's really all he's got on his plate. So, it's nice to see that he's 90 years old, dedicated to cranking this theme out. So,
and here I thought he was more or less kind of retiring. He's kind of retired from Star Wars, I guess, but he comes back for these one-off type of
these
scores,
are personal. He's doing what Harrison Ford does. If Spielberg calls, fine, I'll go. I'll do it. If Spielberg or Lucasfilm calls and says, "Hey, we've got a Star Wars gig we want you to do," he'll probably do it. But he's not out there actively looking for work, right? He's just trying to chill out and listen to Toto.
Yeah, he's got Toto and Journey on, mix and repeat.
Well, his son's in Toto, so
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for dropping that yet again. Your weekly drop.
I like Toto. I don't know what to say. I actually saw him. I actually got to see him play in Toto here in Austin a couple years back. So good stuff. I said, your dad rocks. Okay. Let's, without further ado. So Jonesy.
Yes.
As you know, we are currently celebrating the 10th year of the Cantina Cast, and we're now well over 400 episodes into that. And I was given a special gift by my brother, who contacted me I talked to him pretty regularly, just about every day. But he reached out and he was like, hey, he just sent this link to me, and I clicked it, and I was just kind of blown away by what I had seen. So I'm going to share it with you. It's actually for both of us. Let me see if I can pull this up, and hopefully this thing's going to work, because I didn't get a chance to test it before we came on the air. So this is going to be a huge disappointment. So I'm going to shut up. I'll turn this on.
Do you work for SWOTOR?
Yeah, exactly. I'll turn this on. It's like 7 minutes long, so I do apologize, but trust me, guys, it's definitely worth it. Hope you guys enjoy this.
Hello, Albert, and hello, Jonesy. First of all, I would love to introduce myself. My name is Femi Taylor, and I play Ula in Return the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's Green Twi'lek, of course. The lovely people from Cantina Cast asked me to reach out to you to say congratulations for reaching 400 episodes on your Star Wars podcast, which is amazing. And congratulations, that is your 10th anniversary. And also I see that you won the award as well from Tuco, which is fantastic. But they so kindly asked me to reach out, and I think maybe I should just talk about how I was asked to go back to do the special edition. It was about 1994, and I was over in New York, and I hadn't told anybody that I was there. And I get this message from one of my best friends who I was staying with in the Chelsea Hotel. And she said, Femi, there's this message from the casting director, from Robin Gerland, and she's from Lucasfilm, and she said, can you call her back? And I just thought it was a hoax. I thought, oh, absolutely rubbish. Nobody knows where I am. So I called this lady back, and I said, this is Femi Taylor, and can I speak to Robin Gerland? She said, yes, speaking. She said, oh, Femi, we've been trying to get hold of you for the past 3 months. George Lucas is, he's revamping your scene in Jabba's palace, and they would very much like you to come and reshoot some footage. And I went, oh my goodness. And they said, they didn't think they were going to try. They didn't think they could find me. And if they weren't going to find me, then they were going to CGI me. I said, well, you don't have to CGI me because you found me now. And they said, well, the one thing is that you have to fit into your original costume, which was like 14 years prior. And they said, have I changed? And I said, well, not really. Back then I was about 36, and I hadn't had my children, wasn't married. So they said, look, you have to take some photos. So my best friend and I went down to this tacky gym and took some photos and FedExed them over to them. And they said, oh, no, you haven't changed at all. We would love to fly you over. So I went back to England, and then 2 weeks later, they flew me out to San Francisco. And it was just so bizarre and weird. And when I got onto set, after putting on my original costume, which even smelt the same, my lecus, my next to nothing costume, my shoes, I had to do, it was everything. And thank goodness I didn't take anything, because otherwise I would have lost it and I wouldn't have been able to redo this scene. But anyway, I'm losing track here. But when I got there, they said to me, oh, Femi, all you need to do is we'd like you to sort of struggle on the leash. And I thought, well, that's a bit odd. They actually could have CGI'd me. I've come all this way to struggle on the leash against the green screen. And I went, okay, all right, well, I'm getting paid. So yeah, I'll do that. And then, they were just saying to me, we had a different choreographer. And I just thought, oh gosh, is this working? This is working. And they just said, just do some twirls here and there. And I said, oh, how is this going to work out? And then Rick McCullum, who was the second director on it, he said to George Lucas, he said, George, you know what? I think if Femi can stay, we would love to build a set and see her come into the pit and face the Rancor. And George said, yeah, okay, well, that's a good idea. And he's lovely, George. He's such a sweetheart. And so they built me a set, and it took about 4 days. And this is when you see me come down into the pit and face my demise, face my death, the Rancor. But I think it was really good that they did that, because then you could sort of see finality of Ula. Although a lot of people say, oh, well, you don't see her getting eaten and she escaped. But I think it was really good, and it was just worth my while being over in San Francisco in Industrial Light and Magic Studios. But that was great. And then when I did it originally, it was wonderful because I was with all the cast. I was with Billy D. Williams and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and then Boba Fett, Fortuna. Everybody was in Jabba's palace, and the daunting thing was when I had to get up and do my dance routine in front of everybody, and I just thought, just put your hat on, Femi, don't get shy, bring on the thunder. But really, just any stories on set, it was an incredible soundstage that they had created, this extraordinary sort of subterranean chamber of a palace. It was just incredible, and the smell of sweet tobacco they put in, and Mark Hamill so sweetly used to come up and chat to me, and then Billy D. Williams came up to me. The first thing he said to me was that
there we go,
and he was standing behind me, and he said, "Girl," I'm sorry, I'm English, as you can hear by my accent, but I can't do an American accent. But he went, "Girl, anyone can spot that Yoruba princess coming through the green, those black features." And I said, oh my goodness, how did you know I was Nigerian? How did you know I was Yoruba? But he was lovely. But the whole atmosphere on the set originally was it was like being one big family. And I'm glad about that, because it was quite daunting having to dance in front of everybody and just block everybody out and just do my thing. But doing Ula has really brought me little diamonds, shall I say. It's allowed me to travel, do conventions, meet my fans. It's been, and I've been able to fit it into my other career alongside. So it's been amazing. It's been amazing having her in my life. And the funny thing is, I was not going to go up for the original audition in the first place because they didn't tell me what it was. It was such a secret. And I just thought, well, I'm a trained dancer, and am I wasting my time? But, you have that gut feeling in the voice saying, go along. And I did. But here I am telling you a little story and saying, really masses of congratulations from myself, Femi, reaching 400 episodes on your podcast. This is incredible. And to the Cantina cast, thank you so much for asking me to reach out to Albert and Jonesy. And I hope you're all keeping safe. And perhaps one day, if I'm in your area and you see that I'm guesting at the convention, please come and say hello. That would be lovely. Take care of all yourselves. Have a wonderful week, and lots of love to you. Bye-bye from Femi Taylor. Bye-bye.
That was really cool. That was really cool.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. So thanks, Alex. Thanks for sending that to us. I think that something got lost in the way he submitted the form. I guess she read it as it was coming from the Cantina cast. I don't know. I don't remember. Right. He explained it to me. It didn't make any sense, but nonetheless, it was a nice gesture. It was really cool to see that. I mean, those stories are, you can just sit there and watch and listen to people talk about that stuff all the time. And what really caught my ear, I guess, is, and among the other things, was that they piped in that smelling, that cigar, that sweet smell of smoke, tobacco. Yeah. And to kind of, really set that atmosphere of what Jabba's palace was like, which was just it was awesome. So
that's really cool. Yeah. Thanks so much, Alex. That was unexpected.
Yeah.
That was unexpected.
So I told you. I kept telling him, you're going to love it.
No, I thought that was fantastic. I'm sitting here trying not to cry.
Don't cry.
No, it was great. No, that was a lot of fun. And she's I remember when she went back to do that one, and it was incredible that she was still in perfect shape for it.
Mm-hmm.
And really, with the makeup on, you couldn't tell she had aged at all. And
nope.
She had to have been, I guess if she was in her mid 30s when she did it originally, she was 50. So, wow.
So I went on.
That can't be right. She had to have been in her mid 30s because if she was 50 in 94 or 90, somewhere in 94, 97, she does not look over 70.
She's got to be in her 60s at this point, I would imagine. I mean, she looks
She looks-
amazing if that's
yeah,
true.
she looks
My
fantastic.
goodness.
Yeah.
Like Alex said, she looks like she's 21 right now.
Yeah.
So good for her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who can blame Billy D?
Yeah, like really, Billy, like your reputation, precede yourself there. So, okay. Well, with that, I don't know how we top that. Now we got to get into our show. So sorry, folks.
I know we should just end it now. Just come back another day.
End it on a high. We'll come back and redo this show since we have
Right.
the bar has been set pretty high for us.
Right.
What are we even talking about? Oh, yes, that's right. We're going to talk about the Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
Okay, where to start? I want to start with one thing just briefly. So I thought we'd kind of give our overall thoughts on the series, season, whatever we're going to call this thing. And then we can get into some of the technical aspects and talk about, what was the story about and who was it for? Who were the main characters? All that stuff. And leave this as again, more of a discussion than necessarily a review show. And I think it's fair that I was talking to a buddy of mine just one side thing. I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier this week, Pete. Hey, I know he listens to the show, but he said, he goes, man, you guys are really, really, you went kind of easy on the Book of Boba Fett. And I thought, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I don't ever want this show to be us just, taking a leak on all of it.
Chilling it out. Oh,
well,
yeah,
chilling it out for one. Yeah. We'll wait till next week or next 2 months.
There's a balance between it all, right?
Yeah, no, but I don't want this show to be like a negative thing, right? I mean, I think it's fair to have criticism so long as you're respectful and you do it with good taste and you're definitely talking about the stuff that you did enjoy. And I think this show was so kind of like there were tons of stuff that over the top enjoyed as a boy, as a man. And then there were things that I was just kind of like, I really didn't care for that now that I'm looking back on it for the last 7 episodes. So hopefully this is going to be more positive than negative, but I think the criticism is fair because it was a different series and there were I think there were some missteps. And we'll talk about that. Hopefully you guys will feel better about that. So, but I did want to mention one thing because it did take there was a lot of criticism about whether or not the show was interesting, whether or not people were watching it. I can tell you people didn't shut up about it. So like from that perspective, it did feel like everybody was watching it. And just recently, a couple days ago, IGN had put out an article. It was actually through the Deadline. The Deadline was the first to report this, but there's an estimated 1.5 million households tuned in to the Book of Boba Fett season 1 finale compared to the 1.1 million that tuned in for the Mandalorian season 2 finale. So, interesting stat. No reason to say that it's made up or phony or anything like that. Let's not even get into that, right?
Yeah,
but just take it.
Hard to tell where those numbers come from. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could poke holes in that, but on face value, I think there's some reasons, right? You've got the Mandalorian season 1 was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. We didn't know what to expect. No one really did. I thought season 2 was better than season 1 for a lot of different reasons. And I think they ended on arguably one of the highest you can go out on, right? Having somebody like Luke Skywalker, although we didn't know that was going to be the case. And then you come back and you do the Book of Boba Fett, which felt like it started off pretty strong, had kind of a rocky middle maybe. And then by the end of it, it had a lot of people tuning in just to see what was going to happen. So whether that equates to, good reviews or being received in a positive way is completely different, but at least it got people watching. And I think if I'm an investor at Disney or I'm somebody that's measuring the success of the show, I don't know that I'm not hyper focused on like the audience so much really. I mean, did my creators put something out that people were gravitating to? Were they spending time on Wednesday nights at 2 a.m. or Wednesday mornings at 2 a.m. or Wednesday nights with the family around special dinners and going out of their way to watch the show? And I think the answer is yes. And so by that measure alone, I think this is a very, very successful show. Say what you will about any other aspect. I do feel like it was talked about and watched quite a bit. So
I think if anything else, I mean, it also shows you that how strong the character of Din Djarin and Grogu, how much weight they carry in a series. And like you said, if you're an investor in this, you've got to be excited that Mando season 3, you've got very high expectations for now, because the episodes that presumably did the best, or at least had the most outspoken positive remarks and reviews were, chapters 5 and 6, I would think, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if you're looking forward, those types of things, you really focus on that. You got your return on this one, and you can figure out what you want to do with it. But what you're going to get later this year, along with Kenobi and everything else, you still feel really good about where the franchise is going and how the franchise has turned around from a lot of the negativity and stuff that had followed it the previous few years. So
Yeah.
I think in general, you feel like you're on the right trajectory at this point. I think in general.
Right. No, and I agree. And so that I mean, it bodes well for I don't know, whatever, season 2 of Book of Boba Fett if they want to go that route. I know Ming-Na Wen had said that she said something recently during the interviews, she was doing a little press junket here. She said something about, she mentioned season 2 and people ran with that as, oh, this is a confirmation that season 2 is coming out. And she kind of walked that back a little bit and said that she just misspoke, that she was hoping that it would be a season 2, but by no means was she out there saying that, that was confirmed. So,
right.
Again, we kind of talked about that in the last episode, or at least on the Patreon episode, about what was going to be next and whether or not there would be a season 2. But at least I think, given kind of what's to your point here, the trajectory is pretty good. So I think it could be a season 2. I think it bodes really well for The Mandalorian, because now you've picked up, you've got the momentum off of Mando season 1 and 2. You've got new people probably picked up from Boba Fett. And so it just keeps growing, right? So that the expectations are probably at an all-time high. Which can be a lot of pressure for them, and they don't go into the sophomore slump kind of thing. Although I guess we're technically in the third season, so
the junior year.
The junior year. How about that?
All right.
So yeah, I think that's all that's all good stuff. If I'm watching and tracking this stuff,
absolutely, yeah, I think you're right on the money. I think this is I think the other thing you could think about though is that with Boba Fett, you've proven that the character is still interesting enough, and that there was roughly enough to fill this season. There's a lot of argument against that, but there was roughly some things that you could fill in. But I think also what we maybe learned a bit from this one, at least what I took away from it, is that Boba Fett, I still think, works as more of a secondary character than leading his own show. And maybe that's not the character specifically, but how they're writing the character. It almost seemed like they weren't totally sure how to have him be a showrunner, to the point where once we got past the history stuff, it really kind of felt a little, clumsy of sorts, or not clumsy, but just didn't jive quite as well. It wasn't synchronizing like you would expect it to. The story was a little difficult to understand how it was progressing. And that was our criticism the first few episodes, right? And this show's always been more about characters and scenes and things like that than actual, judging of a show, if you will. But those first few episodes, we loved the backstory we were getting, but we weren't really sure where it was going in the present day because we had so little of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the part that was difficult to understand. I think that's the part that made it more challenging later on, especially when you spend 2 episodes pretty much totally away from Boba Fett. That's the part I think people probably have a right to say that, it didn't feel like Boba Fett because there was so much that was not Boba Fett in the current day.
Mm-hmm.
And despite having some really good storytelling moments in other ways. And again, this is kind of what we talked about a few weeks ago, that doesn't really feel like necessarily a book of Boba Fett, but the entire Mandalorian and Boba Fett and all these other things going on all seem like their own big book. And these are just different parts to the book, with each and then chapters within their own parts.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it's going, is it's kind of this volume of sorts rather than each individual book.
So let's start there. Why don't we start with the positive? I guess maybe kind of talk about some of the things that you felt worked really well. If you want to throw in some of your favorite moments, that's cool too, or just kind of, favorite overall positive impressions of the series and what we got from it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think early on, everything with the Tusken Raiders was interesting. You could poke holes in some of it, but I think the idea of him acclimating to the tribe, being welcomed in, doing things a little bit different. And we had a difficult time understanding what Boba's angle was. Even Cad Bane, couldn't figure it out at the very end, asking the question that we had been asking for weeks at that point. But I think it was one of those things of seeing the culture of the Tuskens from a different perspective and understanding that while we've always viewed them a bit as savages too, until the Mandalorian series came out, there's more to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this sense of tribe and community. And I think those were really cool things to explore, especially, and I really liked the ceremonial aspect when they were wrapping Boba Fett after he'd been inducted into the tribe. His trials were kind of met, and then the dance and the all of that stuff at the end, where I thought he was learning how to fight, but he's really learning how to do the tribal dance, right?
Yeah.
And I thought those scenes were really well done. The whole the trippiness of the vision and whatnot
Vision
was really,
Quest.
yeah, that was really cool too. Again, more integrating of some of the things we've talked about for years now with that spirit quest type of thing, and working that into it just really fits the Tuscans so well. And I really enjoyed the Tuscan sequences that we got. And I was glad that they spent time developing that too. I think that was really important, that you needed some of that to happen, or you really needed a lot of that in order to make that feel like it took some time. Now, on the, contrary to that, it wasn't really clear how long he was with the Tuscans. So when we moved away from that, all of a sudden it felt like we just jumped and there was no sense of time. And I think we had a little bit of that throughout the series too. That was just difficult to see. What kind of grounding do we have with how much time has eclipsed from, the Sarlacc pit to when he is, and when the Tuscans are killed, to when we're, basically winning the rest of Tatooine, or we're cleansing Mos Espa. So I think those were some of the things that kind of came back. But the Tuscans, I think, to start, were probably one of the strongest points when you look at the story of Boba Fett specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would echo that. I mean, I think even with the Luke presence, I still feel like the second chapter was the strongest for me. Like I can go back and watch that over and over again. I watched it as part of this, ahead of this show, and it stood out for me. I mean, I loved all the Luke stuff. I love the Din Djarin stuff, the Boba Fett or the Mandalorian lore that was coming through in chapter 5.
Yeah.
But I just felt like that second episode was the big one for me. Like it checked all the boxes. There was emotion to it. And I'll come back to that in a little bit, because that's one of my critiques about this season, is just the lack of emotion at times. So yeah, I would say the Tuscans was the most interesting aspect for me of this show. I mean, apart, and that's Boba Fett 100%. But apart from that, I would jump to the next piece being Luke and Mando, right? And that's not Boba Fett. And that's part of the criticism that I think has been fair, and that people are certainly talking about, that it didn't feel like Boba Fett's show. But I definitely enjoyed the Tuscan stuff. That whole backstory was amazing. I really wish they would have kept going with that. I mean, I could have watched more flashbacks, or could have watched them come back, or I mean, I was already in my head canon they were going to contribute to this war at some point, and that didn't happen. But I think there's more story to be told there, and hopefully we'll get that at some point.
Yeah, and I think the part of that story that we were hoping to get that we didn't get was the Cobb Vanth aspect of it. So another highlight was definitely getting Cobb Vanth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, that Manda and the Din Djarin aspect of it getting pulled in, I think some of those things are good to have, right? It's good to have Din Djarin, because you start to have these people who can bring characters together, right? You can't just stumble over everyone and assume there's a relationship. You have to lean on others, and they bring people in. And I think that was a good way to segue a lot of those characters in order to help set things up later. The Luke stuff, yeah, it was a bit of a stretch. I mean, it was all really Grogu oriented more so than anything else. So that probably detracted a bit more for the whole season than really added to it, although it was fantastic Star Wars.
Yeah.
But from the story, but yeah, really, I think the one thing we were hoping to get a lot more of was really true Boba Fett, and the Cobb Vanth aspect of that, of how did he know Cobb Vanth had the armor? And some of the dialogue with Cad Bane just kind of made it more a bit muddier to understand. You should have left him with his armor. Well, he didn't take it away from him. Din Djarin did, basically. So there's some aspects of that where I was hoping for a little bit stronger connection. But again, if they wanted to draw and develop that, they had the opportunity to. But instead, we went on a bit of a tangent with the Din Djarin aspect of it in Grogu.
Yep. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the chat. Amen, Jonesy. I don't know when that was. It was probably the whole thing, everything you said so far. Jeff says Tuscans really felt like the heart of the show. Not that it was bad after, just lost a little something. Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Well, so does Dante. Says, in my opinion, the ambiguously dead Tuscan warrior should have come back. I think that would have been that. Okay, so we'll hold that thought, because I definitely want to come back to that. Again, that kind of plays in that whole emotion aspect that I felt was missing. Episode 2 is probably one of the best episodes. Star Wars across all shows, in my opinion. Jeff, you're right, because I said so. No, I'm kidding. So okay. So all of that, 100% agree.
Right.
Okay. So let's move on from the Tuscans. For me, another highlight was, I feel like the show's in good hands. Like, as much as we can sit here and poke holes in it as much as it makes us weary. I think it stresses me out about, okay, what's next and how they're going to, I want all of this Disney Plus content, and I want anything post Lucasfilm and Disney to be successful, because that is the Star Wars, right? That's the Star Wars of all of our, the youth. And we want them to love it for what we loved it for. Even if we don't love it as much, we want that for our youth, right? They should have the same kind of thoughts and feelings about this stuff. So I feel very confident that as much as we had problems, you can poke holes in all this stuff, the fact that John and Dave are behind this, I think is a good thing. And again, we probably don't, and I keep saying this, I know I'm harping on it, and I'm just now starting to hear other people say it, which is good, because I think people have just forgotten. It's not, it's not a revelation in any means, but you've got to remember that Dave Filoni does not work in seasons. He doesn't work in 2 to 3 episode bunches, right?
Right.
He tells a very holistic story. He comes from this old school George Lucas of, I've got everything in my head, it's already laid out, and it's just a matter of how do we get these pieces in here. And he's pulling from stuff. This whole Boba Fett thing, there was an interview that he had done years ago, back during Clone Wars, when Cad Bane was introduced. And he was talking about, wouldn't it be cool if we had these, if we had a Western like that and all that. So this is something that's been sitting in his mind, right? And he's just had it on the back burner. He's now bringing it forth. So from that perspective, I think we just need to be we need to be patient. And the fact that they're running this, and it seems like it's a very tight group in terms of what the storytelling is, right? I think we're going to look back on this a few years later down the road and look back and say, wow, okay, yeah, although it had problems, it now fits into this better overall picture. I know you were talking about that earlier, and we've mentioned it here before, but the highlight for me, the positive, is that we've got John and Dave at the writing helm. These are their stories, and I think that's going to be good for storytelling, whether it's got flaws.
Right. I think one of the interesting things about Dave Filoni is, you were talking, he has kind of this holistic view. He really has a holistic view at the character level, right? And so he takes a character and he starts to think about the things that the character would go through. What kind of experiences should they go through? What kind of development should the character go through?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, and the story starts coming around that, is if you put enough of those characters together and you're able to kind of piece together where they're at in those moments. Some will be a little further ahead in their journey than others, and and that they just change, just like real life, right? And so I think that's always the thing that works really well with Dave Filoni. And you and I love just listening to him talk, right? We could listen to him for hours talk about Star Wars and characters and just ideas of what he has, and about how he thinks things should go. And like you just pointed out, wouldn't it be cool if? But I think it all starts with the characters. It all starts with, where I have this character. This is where they're at. This is where I think they should be going. And here are some of the adventures in the middle. And here are the people that can help them get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's always a great approach to storytelling, when you start with the characters, rather than saying, okay, here's my adventure. Here's where I'm starting. Here's where I'm ending. And okay, how do I make all the rest of it fit?
Yeah.
Start with the individual characters. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a slow burn, right? Ahsoka, even Cad Bane to some extent. You look at Ezra.
Yeah.
All these characters that took a while for you to really kind of understand where he was going, and things that didn't make sense making sense later down the road in several seasons.
How many people hated Ahsoka when she came out?
Everybody.
How many people? Yeah, pretty much
hated
everybody.
her.
And then how many people really didn't particularly care for Ezra either?
Yep.
Ezra wasn't a super popular character. There was a niche, I think, that was a little bit with that.
I was in the
another
niche, I'll admit.
Right, yeah, but a lot of people had the same kind of thing. Well, it was kind of whiny, and he kind of complains, but by the end of those series, or even halfway through the series, you're like, I love these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. It's that developmental aspect of it. You can't take it all right at face value, right? And I know we're kind of skewing and being a bit more ambiguous here, but you have to take these things and let them have time to develop. And I think that's maybe one of the things that the Book of Boba Fett didn't have enough time to do, or maybe didn't structure the story in that way to really focus on Boba Fett once we got out of the Tusken village. And I think that was the part that we wanted to see, where he wanted to actually go. And we kind of got that in the end, but we weren't really brought along the journey very cleanly, I think. And we'll talk a little bit about more of the technical aspects here in a few minutes. But
yeah,
something else I really liked, you touched on this before, though. One of my other favorite moments was, of course, the lore, the Mandalorian lore.
Yep.
in chapter 5 with the armor and Paz Vizsla learning to fight with the Darksaber, seeing the armor with the Darksaber. Some of that dialogue was some of the best dialogue, I think, in the series, period.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really, really good. And it was just really solid. And you just can't, seeing Din kind of come in through the, I don't know, what are those things called? The plastic things that they have in the meat lockers. You got them right behind you in the picture, but I don't know what they're called, but coming through that, it was just iconic, right? The silhouette and just coming through with the music. I mean, you see it from a mile away, but at the same time, you still get this jolt of electricity through this.
15 seconds into that episode, by the way.
Right. Yeah. You didn't have to wait for it. Right.
Mm-mm.
But I think some of the dialogue in that episode was just really some of the best we'd had throughout the entire series. I think that was really, really strong. And again, we talked about this in the Patreon show of the questions now about how the armor and Paz Vizsla and Din and Grogu fit into the greater Mandalorian story now and what's next in season 3. I think that episode alone set up so many things, both from a storytelling perspective, as well as just getting us excited about what the potential could hold. And that's what you can really sell with one story, one episode. It did all of that, which I think Boba Fett struggled to do consistently throughout 7. And so, but again, it just kind of shows you when you get it right, you can get it really, really right. And there are ways to do it. And the creative team involved has that capacity to do it. And I think when you have characters that you really feel totally connected to.
Yep. There were a lot of Easter eggs, and we're not going to go through all of them. There was tons and tons of Easter eggs that I just enjoyed as a positive for me. I do like that
sometimes
stuff.
A few too many.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, and I was going to say, sometimes it can feel like heavy-handed and like it's so much in your face, but I think it's different for everybody. Like, Easter eggs are a very personal thing. You know what I mean? Like when they showed that rod, right, or whatever. I already forgot the name of it because it's so complex. But the rod that was used that we saw in season 1 of The Mandalorian, and we saw it in New Hope, right? That was like one of the greatest Easter eggs for me, because as a kid, I always thought that was a cool look. It just looked cool. It looked like a really long muffler of some sort. And, I have that whole episode 4 as it just resonates with me because of how old I was and seeing it. And that was my Star Wars. And there's this item that was from there, and it's so iconic to me. But then you ask, you probably ask 10 other people, and they're like, okay, yeah, so what, Albert? That's kind of cool, but it's really not that big of a deal, right? So cameos I think they are very personal. They can be very personal. So it's really hard to say, whether or not it's too heavy-handed or it isn't, or it's not enough. I think it's all just kind of in the eye of the beholder to some extent there. But I did enjoy all of the cameos as well. But here, what I want to touch on, though, is if I said, look, Jonesy, I've got a script for you. I want you to read this script. It's a Star Wars script. Okay. And in this script, I have the characters of Boba Fett, Fennec Shan, Black Chrysanthemum. I'm going to throw in Ahsoka, Luke, Cad Bane, Cobb Vanth, Machete, Cammy, Fixer. I'll throw some Hutts in there. And I'm going to give you Peli Motto, right? You had to bring her up. I'm gonna throw all these characters into a series, and I'm gonna do it in 7 episodes. You'd be like, "Holy wow! What are you talking about? Like this is amazing, right? This is incredible." And I just like,
I would have been like, "You're insane. That's too
there's
many.
no way you can do this. It's gonna be short. It's gonna fall short somewhere. No, but yeah. So as a positive, I would say that I really enjoyed the fact that they brought in so many characters from other. From comic books and from books and, cut scenes from episode 4. That stuff was really Max Rebo. Thank you. My goodness. How could we have forgotten Max Rebo? But if someone had said, we're going to put all these characters in there, your mind's blown away. And I love the fact that we got all of these characters for a couple of reasons. One, it hits on the nostalgia factor. It hits on the cameo or the Easter egg factor in some way. But I do like that it does open the doors. I think it sets a precedence of, hey, we can bring in characters like Black Hay. We don't have to give all of the details. You don't need to know everything that's going on. Right. We can feed you a couple of things that you need to know to catch your interest. And boy, did he catch everyone's interest, especially a lot of people on Twitter. They got real freaky with this thing. But there's a really cool way to do this. And I think it sets a good precedence for bringing other characters in, like Ahsoka, or things from Legends now, right? there's always been this weird thing about, oh, you can't bring in people from comic books because they're not going to understand it, right? You can't bring people in from books because they're going to get lost. And I don't think that's the case anymore, especially when you got a series like, because you're using Disney Plus and it's your own and you can kind of do whatever you want, allows that to happen probably a little bit more freely.
Right.
But I think it's also a good indicator that there's probably going to be more to come. I mean, Cobb Vanth is another example, right? He was a character they ripped out of a few pages, a few chapters out of a 3 trilogy novel series.
Yeah, from something, God, how many years ago now?
Right.
Yeah.
So as a positive, I love the fact that they did that. They said, screw it, we're pulling everybody in. This is going to be a big house party of Star Wars characters, and it's going to tell a really cool story, and you're going to love it. And they went with it, and I think it was successful. And I'd love to see more of these characters pop up from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the characters who, again, we start pulling outside of thinking about it as a Boba Fett TV series. When you think about, Luke, Ahsoka, Grogu, Din Djarin, all in the same episode. I mean, you got 4 characters who you could have done without in all of Book of Boba Fett, right? But those 4 characters, even though you just kind of dumped all the action figures out there, that story fit really, really well, like in its own little narrative, in its own little bubble. That story was so powerful and so, fantastic. And I mean, again, kudos to the CGI on that aspect too, because that really, that could have cratered the episode. It would have distracted from everything with as much screen time Luke Skywalker had. But
yeah,
it shows you how you can take a self-contained episode and really, that one episode, I mean, you and I agreed it was some of the best Star Wars we've seen perhaps ever, and at least in recent memory. And you can do a lot with these characters. And again, they've got so many to pull from. And then Stargate Pioneer Cantina Cast was ripped out of a New Hope scene over 40 years ago. And see where you guys are now. Yeah. We're just old now. Yes, thank you.
We're a living example.
Right, of age. But yeah, again, I'm with you though. Some of the cool characters they brought in, like Chrysanthemum and Cobb Vanth, and just
Cad
so
Bane.
much. Yeah, Cad Bane. Really didn't see that one coming. I mean, we started to see it coming as we got really close to it, but man, so cool to see these guys live action, even though they're a little bit different. But man, it's so cool to see them in live action. And for Cad Bane and Chrysanthemum to actually play a part in the overall story, I think was really cool to see. It wasn't that they were in their own little story. And you're exactly right. You don't have to have all of the background behind it. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter like, who the hell is this blue guy? Because they didn't name him. Right? They didn't name him.
They
in
never.
the first
I don't think they
episode.
said his name, did they?
In chapter 6, they did.
Yeah.
Or,
okay.
Chapter 7, rather, they did.
Right.
But yeah, they didn't have his name in chapter 6. And a lot of people were like, who is this guy? He's wild, he's wicked, but they didn't know who he was because they didn't watch Clone Wars, right?
Yeah, but they've seen Westerns, right? They've seen that archetype before.
Oh yeah, I mean, they knew it worked, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you see that character and it's like, whoa, who is this guy? Like,
I know.
all he's missing
is a toothpick.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. That's all he was missing.
Yeah.
Okay. So another, let me get through a couple other ones. We can make this a little bit quicker, but I enjoyed all of the toy moments, right? The Kenner Star Wars action figure play sets that were put together. I was all in. Like, I didn't have a problem with any of it. And for me, it just it was pulling at my heartstrings, making me feel like a boy again. Like we kept joking about who knows what's going to happen because they are literally, like you said, they are opening up the Darth Vader case and they are dumping these figures out. They're going into the toy box. They're pulling out the action play sets and loading weapons up on everybody. And they're just having fun time out there on screen. And from that perspective, I like it. And I do personally feel like if you're a kid, you're not looking at the storyline. You're not questioning why Boba Fett, a bounty hunter, the most notorious bounty hunter ever in Star Wars, didn't think that, I can go hire bounty hunters, right? You're not poking holes in that thing. You're looking at this and going, oh, heck yeah, we're going to get more people in here like Mando, right? A huge character. They're looking at this and going, a Rancor, awesome. Give me that. I want to see that crashing through stuff. Great. Check that box. Those are the things that really resonate with kids. And I think and people in general, right? It resonates with the fun part of your heart that you can look past some of the stuff and just enjoy it for what it is. And that's what helps, I think, develop fans, and it helps develop people the enjoyment, the love of Star Wars. It comes through just some of the basic elements like that, like lightsaber battles and X-wings and blaster shootouts and all that stuff. That's at the core of it. Star Wars is about family, but there is all kinds of other things in there that we really enjoy about Star Wars, and we got to have those in there. And boy, did they throw that out in spades at times. It was just really cool. I mean, the whole Boba Fett flying around in his Slave One and shooting people down. We had that moment in there. I mean, that's like, you set all your action figures up, you take Slave One and you come in and you shoot them all down, show those guys. I mean, that's all that was, right? So from that part, I just enjoyed all of those little kid moments, if you will. I hate to call them that, because I don't mean it to be demeaning in any way, but it just is. There's something very innocent about it that I really enjoyed.
Those exciting moments, right? It makes you feel young again, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you can get excited about something on screen like this, especially something that's been with us for so long. That something like that can still get you excited. One thing I wanted to do, I think we really do have to call Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni out for taking a risk of trying to change the narrative of Boba Fett, or take the character in a different direction than what we have always set him up to be, or what he's always been, I guess, right? And I think that's a really difficult thing to do. And we can argue about how well it was done, but I think just the premise alone of trying to take him in a different direction, and maybe not make him a quote unquote good guy or the hero, or even really an anti-hero, but just to try to take him in a different direction and show character growth is very, very difficult to break the shackles of what you've seen for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you do have to give them a shout out to say, okay, just the taking that on is pretty bold, and has a lot of risk associated with it, because we know how, like, the fans let you know if they don't like something. And so for them to even take this on and want to do that, I think was a pretty bold statement. And I think reasonably, they did it reasonably well.
Well, and that was my last one, honestly. I mean, it's not the last one, but for the sake of the show. And so we're not going on forever, because we got a lot of stuff to still talk about here.
I still haven't even said Pelimoto.
Oh,
that's part of the series.
Okay, she was good. I like, again,
she was good. I was glad that she had a very redeeming part in this series, which I was very happy about. She was very enjoyable.
Yep. No, she grew on me. We mentioned it when it came out.
Jawas.
Furry Jawas. That was all you were in for.
Right.
But no, so the last thing I had on here was exactly that, was Boba Fett's evolution. Love it or hate it, the fact that they did it, I think was awesome. I think it was done really, really well when we had the flashbacks with the Tuskens, and I'll keep alluding to it, but we'll come back to that here on what didn't work and what worked a little bit later. But there was a lot of emotion in that, right? You think about all the best Star Wars stories and what we really like. We tend to gravitate to those emotional draws. What was his name? Cal Newman.
Yeah.
Love or hate him. Cal Newman recently had said that, when you look at those twin sons, like, it means something. Like, you have an emotion. There's something that stirs you emotionally, right? And that
who doesn't hear the music swelling?
Exactly.
Yeah,
it comes from the music itself. It comes from the setting. It comes from all of us having gone through that. There's moments in our lives when we've just looked off into the distance and we're caught, thinking about things and wondering. And maybe it wasn't about, the galactic empire or anything like that, but it was, where is my place in all of this? Right? Who am I? Right? We resonate with those pieces. When you look at something like The Mandalorian, if everybody but Mike Rondo loved the story of Din and Grogu. You had that emotional connection with them. You could feel it, whether you're a father and you were connecting as a child, or you're thinking about your father or your parents and connecting with that, or maybe just somebody that took care of you and loved you or took you in. It resonated with people. There was an emotional bond, and that's why I kept saying he's coming back. You can't do that to us. You can't throw that out there, get us emotionally invested into those characters, and then rip them apart and say, sorry, this is no longer the story. That just doesn't work. I mean, you could, but you'd make a lot of people upset, and that wouldn't really necessarily be Star Wars at its core. So when you think, so bring back to Boba Fett, when we got to the Tusken Raiders and we got to the flashback scenes, we connected with the fact that he was being accepted into a tribe. He now had a family, especially a character like Boba Fett who had no family. I mean, we talked about this ad nauseum when we were talking about how he grew up surrounded by people that looked like his father, which none of them were, right? That's got to be just a mind, you know what, the entire day, the entire time. Excuse me. And then here he is all these years later. He's basically reborn. He goes through this whole vision quest. He breaks himself free of the legacy and all the crap that came from his dad, and, you know, living in the shadow of the sins of the father, right? All of that stuff was out there. He got away from all that. He's reborn again, finds his family, connects with these people. They accept him. He, befriends this small boy. He gets trained in their ways. I mean, all of that stuff is very, very emotional. And that's where it worked for me. This series really worked when it was doing a lot of emotional pulling. It got away from that. Like in my opinion, once we left the Tuskens, I felt like, okay, so where's the emotional pull, right? I didn't have it with, Fennec and him. I didn't really, I know I was supposed to care for the fact that he was, the savior of the city, and he was loving that city, but there was no emotion there for me there. It didn't come back. The emotion didn't come back until, unfortunately, when Din and Grogu were reunited. Right. That's when he's like, oh, I love you, buddy. I mean, it's like, whoa, come on. That's like really good stuff there. So the positive, and this will probably segue into the more critical aspects of it, or the stuff that didn't work, was the positive. I felt like there were moments in here where this stuff was like really emotional. I was connected with it. I was vested in it. And I really enjoyed that whole background, that whole back scene stuff, or backstory. But to get into, again, the critique, I don't know. I was really struggling to figure out, like, where did I feel that ever after that? And it was only until, there was the Luke part of it was kind of, but that was more nostalgia for me.
Right.
I didn't even feel it with Ahsoka and Luke. I thought I would, and I didn't. So it was all very
with Ahsoka and Din, like their interaction had a lot more of that than Luke and Ahsoka did. Yeah, I agree with you.
But the point is the main character, Boba Fett, aside from the fact that he wasn't on screen for those, that's a whole nother discussion, right? But the fact that when he was on screen, I no longer felt emotionally connected to him, right? I just didn't. I went along with it because I had to and I wanted to, but it wasn't doing it for me. It wasn't pulling me in, right? It shouldn't be my responsibility to connect with that stuff. I feel like the story should be doing that. Does that make sense? Sorry.
No, absolutely. And I'm right there with you. I think it's when you want to, Boba Fett, when he was younger, because the thing I always go back to is you can have these moments where he tells you that you only get so far without a tribe. And that moment, like that conversation with him and Fennec, like those were the moments you live for, right? You have this small exchange. It seems innocuous on the surface. He's kind of recruiting her and whatever, but then you get this moment where you feel like the character has really, looking back, and he's really turned and says, okay, I can only get so far doing what I'm doing. I need to do something different. And those are the developmental points that, we were hoping to see a lot more overtly with Boba Fett. And we only got a couple. We got one with the Tuskens. I think we got one in that moment. But I don't know that we got really many others. And I think that was the thing that was really missing from that. Because if you look back at Boba Fett's career, in the Clone Wars, he was kind of this bratty, preteen / teenager that bossed around these other guys, but he still was with a crew. But most of that was because he was pretty young, right? And so he kind of jumped in and out of having a tribe, but nothing ever felt like family. And for him to have that moment and have it, but then lose it and then start to want it again and to start making connections with people, like with Fennec, the direction felt pretty promising. And unfortunately, I think one of the weaker parts of Book of Boba Fett, and I hate to say this, was the writing of Fennec Shan. The writing of Fennec Shan was really, as Ming-Na Wen does, I think she did the best she could with the part.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't impressed with it. And it fell flat for me most of the time. And I really wanted to like her more, but the dynamic between her and Boba, just from a chemistry perspective, just wasn't working for me. And actually, I'm going to pin a lot of it on the writing, so to speak. The writing for me was very up and down in this whole entire series. But yeah. But again, we were hoping for
there was
more
no
of these
conflict between them, right? They just kind of roll with it. They always
well,
roll
she just
with
kind
it.
of, yeah, really, she just kind of rolled with it, right? She, whatever lame brain idea he was going to do that was different or this or that, she was like, all right, fine, I guess, okay, kind of reaction to it. And there wasn't, I mean, she would kind of push back a little bit, but Boba was clearly in control. And I guess that's the dynamic of the relationship. I guess if that's what it is, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But for someone of a character of that kind of strength and the Fennec Shan that we've seen, albeit a bit limited in other mediums, including Bad Batch, I was hoping for a little bit more to be able to get Ming-Na Wen to actually be able to do more with the character, but I don't pin that so much on her.
Yeah.
As much as I do the showrunners. Yeah.
So that was the emotional piece of it was probably the biggest problem that I had with the series. Let's just talk about, again, I know we probably talked about enough, but we are doing kind of a retrospective look at the show as a series. But so let's talk about the 2 episodes of Luke and Din Djarin, right? In chapter 6 or 5 and 6, and how that diverted from the actual storyline. Again, I think, like it or love it, like or hate it, agree with it or not, I think I feel better about it. Like, I understand now why they did it. Did they have to? I don't know. That's the question that I still have. Did they have to do that in the series? And I think the answer to that is probably yes, but it doesn't make sense still because, again, we're talking about the way Filoni tells story, his storytelling techniques, and we probably will see something later down the road. But I would say it is fair criticism, again, for people to say that just did feel weird. And I still stand by it. I mean, just go with it. Stop complaining about it. Just like it. Enjoy it. I mean, I know everybody enjoyed it. So here's the thing. And this is where I want to bring it back to, I guess, one of the negatives. The show title itself. Yeah. Like, now that we've seen it all, would you have called this The Book of Boba Fett? Would you have called it? What would you have called it? Like think about the Clone Wars. Right? The Clone Wars on the surface sounds like they're talking about Jedi, right? But when you watch that series, we had everything but Jedi at some point being told. There were stories being told. So they didn't call it, the Jedi, or they called it the Clone Wars because there was a bigger picture here. And I don't know if that's kind of what Filoni's doing here in this new era of Disney Plus. If they're taking something like the concept of the Clone Wars, where they've got all these different stories and it is a war of sorts, or it's some kind of a bigger story arc. And somehow these are just pockets and they're going to piece all this together. But I just don't know that this was the right title for it. I don't even have a good answer as to what you would call it. Right. I don't have a good answer. To some extent, I feel like it's rhetorical. I guess the Book of Boba Fett works in some ways because we talked about the book aspects of it. And when you're reading a book, it's not uncommon to diverge and go tell a story that's of another character. And then later on, it all kind of comes together. Right. And I think that's kind of where they're doing here. But I get it. I get the feedback and the criticism of it just didn't feel right.
Yeah. And I'm going to answer that one here, but I'm going to go back to your other one just real quickly. Chapters 5 and 6 with Din and Luke and all of that stuff. I think it lifted the series because the series was kind of plotting a little bit at that point. It lifted the series and I think overall made the series more popular and better, if you will, but it hurt the story of Boba Fett. I think in the long run, it hurt the story of Boba Fett because you lost 90 minutes of Boba Fett. And I think that hurt the story of the Book of Boba Fett to actually make it sound like the Book of Boba Fett. And I think you and I are kind of on the same page here of this is a book of Mandalore forming, not any particular book of Din Djarin or a book of the Mandalorian or book of the Boba Fett or whoever else might come in or out of this. It's really becoming this book of Mandalore because you've got Bo-Katan and them involved now and other characters that I'm sure will come around. And I think it's something that will eventually be repackaged. And when I think that they finally kind of got it all mapped out the way they wanted to, like, oh yeah, this makes more sense of where we're going and how we framed it. And if we were to put this in a big box set, here's what we would call the box set. And I think it's to the point. You have the interlude of Boba Fett, as Dante said. I think that's actually probably one of the better descriptions I could think of. SP says, I would have called it the redemption of Tatooine. Maybe. Alex, Star Wars pals. Yeah. I would have just named it. We're going back to Tatooine. Again.
Yeah. Again. Return to Tatooine.
Again. Yeah. Return to Tatooine. Yeah. But And that's the unfortunate part is that we've, yeah. Hmm.
Well, here's what I would say too. Like, with all the negatives, though, again, I want to make sure that we're being fair here.
Sure.
With all the negatives in my head, I keep asking myself, but did you enjoy it? And I think the answer is yes. Like, there is, as much as I criticize all of this, even the emotional aspect being absent in the latter part of that series, I enjoyed it. Right at the end of the day, it was a series of really cool moments and character moments that were kind of one dimensional. I mean, the moments themselves were one dimensional, not the characters themselves, if that makes sense.
Right.
At the end of the day, I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed the series. If someone said, "Did you enjoy the Book of Boba Fett?" Yeah, heck yeah, I did. Would you want to see a season 2? Hell yeah, I want to see a season 2. Right? The mission accomplished. And for me, I think they did that. They at least sold me on that. So again, we can sit here and talk about what didn't work. One of the other ones was like the Rancor thing. I felt like that in my head, we were going to get that montage, right? Somebody was going to, they were going to show us him get on there and go through the training process.
Montage.
I did want the montage, but they set that up and said, oh, it's going to take lots of training that we'll never see. And that's, maybe we didn't, maybe it's boring training. I don't know. But I would have loved to have seen that. And it just felt like it was like, oh, we got to go. We got to do this. I called to question the, Grogu showing up and be reunited with Din. Like, so what did that mean for the end of season 2? Right. Luke Skywalker comes in, takes him away. We're all emotionally broken and we're coming back in. And we made this comment before. If you didn't see the Book of Boba Fett, which I ran into somebody, by the way, who had seen The Mandalorian season 1 and 2, had refused to watch the Book of Boba Fett because they didn't find it interesting, but they're hell-bent on watching Mandalorian season 3. And I'm thinking, and they were like, oh, no spoilers. I'm like, you're ready. You're going to be blown away when it comes back, because all they knew is Grogu left with Luke. And suddenly these two are flying around like Starsky and Hutch, if anybody knows who that is, in this Naboo N1 starfighter at the beginning of season 3.
Yeah.
But that felt like it was that whole piece. Of course,
you could just tell that person, hey, just go pick up a chapter 5. You wouldn't have missed anything.
Right. Go watch chapter 5 and you'll be fine.
5, 6, and part of 7, you're good to go.
You're good to go. But I think that piece is just, that piece does feel like it was rushed, I guess. And I don't know how I feel about it one way or the other, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. I feel like I missed out on that. I feel like I missed out on the Luke and Ahsoka relationship and that meeting. Hopefully we get that at some point, maybe a flashback. I don't know. I really wish we would have seen that. But these feel like things that probably should have been in season 3 of The Mandalorian of some sort, right?
Right.
How much of that is
where would they be better slotted? Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, maybe again, hopefully we'll get some of that stuff a little bit later. But it does feel like some of that I felt we got shortened just a little bit, because that stuff is that emotional stuff that I was craving, right? The idea that Ahsoka and Luke would sit down and have this really heart-to-heart conversation, or him. I mean, imagine them sitting there on a bench and he's asking, we've all seen this where the kid is asking somebody that knew their father really well, what was my father like? What was he really like? What did he enjoy? And she's giving these intimate things, like his favorite ice cream was whatever. I don't know, I'm making stuff up here, but you know what I'm saying? Like the stuff that we don't, that's really not important, but from a character perspective is important, that emotional piece was missing. So we didn't get to see that. We didn't get to see the emotional piece of Grogu, and I guess we did see Din struggling with it. But that reunion was kind of just, oh, he's here, and hey buddy, we're here, but we're in the middle of a battle, so we really can't connect. And the next thing we see them doing is they're flying off into space. So we'll get some of that later in season 3. But yeah, there was so those pieces did feel like they were just kind of expedited, and I don't know how much of that was change 0 hour, how much of that fed in from, was this a result of Rangers of the New Republic and that wrench that with Gina Carano being kicked out, did that change anything? Did that change the story at all? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it would have changed a whole lot. I don't think, because again, that's all speculative. We don't really have any way of baselining any of that stuff. But I mean, it all felt a bit truncated at times too, and a bit sterilized, of where it was just something missing that we wanted. And I think you put it pretty well, where the It's about, is it in the right space? Is it in the right spot? And I think you hit on the head. It's just these things these things are great individually, like on its own, but could you have done more with it in a different way or in a different place, at a different, maybe a slightly different time? And time is actually the thing that I start to really have harder time with, have a harder problem with this series, was that the concept of time was just so, man, this whole, like, the Tatooine current felt like a week. If that, right? Everything just went to hell in a week,
Hmm.
and it couldn't have been a week. It had to have been, probably weeks or months, right? But in even the Tuscan times, it was just difficult to understand how long things were. And if you don't have that sense of time and that sense of development and things passing, then you don't know. Then it just feels like you're just kind of running through the motions and you're checking the boxes of what you want to get on film. And I think that's where I think you get the missing of the emotion and just there's a word I want to say, but I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but just that sense of, I don't know, cohesive storytelling and really just emotion that can bridge the entire story together. And I think that's the part that was generally missing from the series in general.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk just quickly because I know we're coming up on hour 2 now here. But I guess from the technical aspects, and we can lump all these together. I mean, the writing, the direction, the music, the sound. Which of those I think stood out for you, and which of those didn't, or felt like kind of fell short at times?
Wow. You know what? The first three, writing, direction, and music, mixed bag. A
Hmm.
real mixed bag, I think. The writing sometimes was absolutely phenomenal. And I think we've talked about a number of those moments, but other times the writing was pretty not inspiring. I guess we can say it that way. The direction, again, we talked about this early on. It felt slow. The action sequence felt slow. The speeder sequence, some of the most boring Star Wars action sequence I think we've ever seen in a long time,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But then we had the Dallas Bryce Howard episode that was just so expertly cut and so expertly
Right.
done.
Yep.
Right. And I think the last three episodes in general were pretty well done and pretty well shot. But those first couple or three really they struggled at times with it. And then I think with the music, we had some moments where we were a little unsure what the music was trying to be. And some of that I think was a mix because it was trying to, you go into a nightclub type of establishment or a gambling establishment, you're not going to have the same type of music as you would, with your symphonic scores and stuff. And I think that's something that we're having to get used to anyway, with the Disney Plus series, is that they're not as symphonic as we're kind of used to with the movies. But again, as we got towards the end of the series, it kind of came more into line with what we had. Although I will say this, the differentness of the Thundercat scene with the mods was, I still think, a perfect fit for something like that in the music. I thought was actually very well done for that scene. And I have no problem with it being that starkly different because it just fits what they were trying to do
Yeah.
in it. I think from those three respects, I mean, those are the three that are just wildly inconsistent from episode to episode. And those things take a toll on you after a little while.
Yep. Um, Sorry, let's go to the comments here. While Book of Boba Fett was inconsistent, at least one constant was the major domo. You could always count on the major domo, and that's from Jeff. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree.
You mean Pretty Face?
Pretty face.
Wait, I don't know if I'm talking about Jeff or Major Domo now.
Oh yeah, no, we're talking about Jeff.
Ding.
So the writing, yeah, I would agree. Like the writing was kind of up and down. I think it was probably more. I think it was better more than it was worse, which is good for me.
Yeah.
The direction, Rodriguez was doing what he does, and some of it worked. Some of it probably didn't hit with some people because they'd never seen some of it. Right, the whole spinning thing, we talked about that, and
Right.
I'm going to, like, I still hear people complaining about that spin. And I went back and watched. So one of the movies that I mentioned when we were talking about that spin was The Killer. It
Right.
came out in 1992. It's a Hong Kong film directed by John Woo, Chow Yun-fat, and who's the other guy? It doesn't matter. But that there is a scene in there where they're doing, like, they're not pirouetting, but they're spinning and doing that stuff. And it is a style, and it is a style that Rodriguez and Tarantino, Wong Kar-wai, all these guys grew up with watching John Woo do this stuff, and that's what it was. It was a tribute to something like that. In my opinion, this is what that really was. And does it sit well? I'm watching The Killer, and I'm thinking if they were to throw this up on the screen right now and let people watch it, they would be laughing at this thing, because there is so much over the top spinning and doing unnecessary moves for the sake of the drama, right? And that's just the style of that film. So I think Rodriguez, I mean, people are saying, don't ever Rodriguez touch anything again. I don't think that's really the case. I just think either it just didn't sit well with you. You didn't like it. It's not that he's a bad director. He's trying to do things that he's always done that have worked well, things that resonate with some people and maybe not a lot of others. Maybe it's a cultural thing or something in that regard. But yeah, I get it. There were some directional moments that didn't make sense. I would agree too that the editing made things go really slow at times. The pacing was off. We've talked about that quite a bit. The mods, I have no problem with the mods other than the fact that those things just were too dang slow. Like right. I still watch it and it's just like, it's frustrating. Yeah. Come on, speed that thing up. And is it a budget thing? Is it a special effects thing? Is it really okay that they are going that slow because they're mopeds and we shouldn't expect it? I mean, maybe that's just the speed they go. And I'm thinking, I don't know. That doesn't feel like Star Wars to me. Star Wars is like 90 miles an hour gunning. Well, unless you're on a bantha, but other than that, I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, pedal to the floor. Right. So yeah, I think that was a bit, some of the fighting choreography was a little lethargic in some of that. I don't know. It's just, again, the way it was shot, maybe, I don't know. So yeah, I would, and then get back to the music. I'm with you. I think there were moments in there that was really good, some not so good. Let's just say that. I don't think there was any bad music parts. There just wasn't a lot that I was like, oh man, the music in this scene is just like, blows away. Right. And we had moments like that in Mando season 2. We had it in Mando season 1. We've certainly had it with all the scores, I think, beginning to end. Even in the Bad Batch, I think there was moments we had the score from Kiner, and some of the stuff that he was doing there was just kind of, It really caught your ear. Season 7 of Clone Wars. There was moments when Ahsoka, that whole sequence where she's jumping around from ship to ship and lands in her 2-point stance with the sabers out. I mean, that whole sequence is amazing music. And I don't know that we got some of that in this series.
I will say this, though. The theme music did grow on me. When I first heard it before the first episode, I have to admit, I was not really a fan. I was like, what is this? But by the end of the series, it was growing on me and actually came to enjoy it quite a bit.
I don't know that I'm there. I was one of the things I hated about this series. I would say I hated it when it came out. I was like, this doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I was not a fan.
And I can't say, I mean, I can listen to it and I don't like, I hate this music anymore, but it's just not my favorite. And now I can't help but go, Boba Fett, da, 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 da. Like I can't, it's just,
See, I was doing that like after week 2 of the whole
thing. Yeah. You were ahead of your time on that one.
Yeah, the only time, yeah. But it's funny, the spinning thing is always funny. Like, so the guy spinning doing those things. But if you remember in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin and Obi-Wan, right in front of each other, twirling their lightsabers, not touching each other at all. It was the most ridiculous thing. It made no sense, right?
Do you remember, did you read the Revenge of the Sith novelization?
It's been so long, but yeah.
So they actually talk about what was going on during that spinning. And as I remember it, they were in that moment, and it feels like a total, we need to explain this because it's so over the top and silly. Right. But the way they explained it, and I could be a little bit off here, was that they were using the Force to feel each other out on what their next move was. And so they were caught in this, like, I don't know, state of perpetual emotion and just like focus because neither one of them wanted to flinch. And
that is the most ridiculous thing I've heard in a while.
I was looking for the book. It's on the back shelf. Maybe I'll find that passage and we'll post it on I don't know, Instagram or Discord.
That is a bit somewhere. But for as many people that love that novel, that's pretty ridiculous.
Oh, that book is amazing. It's the best novelization of any movie.
Oh, yeah, the novelizations, absolutely. I actually liked Last Jedi novelization.
Oh yeah, no. Well, yes, I did like it, but I don't think it's as good as Revenge of the Sith. We just got so much more emotion. There was a lot more backstory that was given to us in Revenge of the Sith.
I'll have to read that. I haven't read it in so long. I think the other thing though is when you talk about interesting inspiration, when Boba and Din Djarin in the final fight. You know, the
Oh.
camera's kind of panning in front. It's like Bad Boys. It reminded me of Bad Boys.
Okay.
With Will
Where
Smith
do you
and
think
Martin
Bad
Short.
Boys got it from?
No,
Where
I
do you
know
think-
this answer. I just can't remember.
Well, it's so yeah. Who is it? The directed Bad Boys. What's his face? My goodness, guy that directs everything that's
Michael
flashy.
Bay.
Michael Bay, right?
Yeah.
A lot of Michael Bay's inspiration, I'm going to say it again, comes from a lot of Hong Kong films, especially John Woo. John Woo is
right?
known for the movement, the camera never stopping. It's always in constant motion. And yes, so, and the other thing, so my God, I'm glad you brought this up. So again, going back to the movie, and I recommend it. Please go watch The Killer, 1992. In that movie, there is a scene where the two guys are back to back and they're shooting guns, and they're surrounded by all kinds of people, and it's so over the top. There's stuff flying everywhere. People are getting shot multiple times. They're shooting people as they're falling down. I mean, it's not a 1-for-1 copy of what's going on in that scene, but it is 100% that scene from Mando when they're back to back there. And I cannot imagine that was not a tribute of some sort or a nod to that scene. But again, it's a stylized thing. And that's what Rodriguez does really well. I think, again, he does good when that stuff is happening. And I don't know, maybe he was just, maybe he tried some different things, or maybe he was leaning too much into his experience with Spy Kids. I don't know where it fell short at times, but anyways.
Nice job bringing that one back up. So what about sound? I think sound effects in general seemed pretty all right to me. Nothing was out of place, I think.
Well, no, I mean, it was good. I thought the sound was actually really good. We got some new sounds in there. We had some familiar sounds. The lightsaber, Luke was great. We got Slave One sounds. We got the seismic charges at some point. That whole train sequence, the sound effects in that whole train sequence when they're rushing the train and jumping onto it is just really good stuff. And then when it crashes and that sand gets blown up and stuff, I mean, I'm listening to this on these headphones, so it sounds pretty good. I can't imagine what this stuff would sound like if you had a really good sound system and watch it. I fortunately don't have one like that. But I think they really did a really good job, honestly. I don't have any complaints with the sound overall.
Yeah, neither did I. I thought that was all pretty right on the money. Visuals and effects, though, had a lot of hits and misses.
I think so. And that's probably expected with the TV series, too. I mean, I don't know. Is it fair to say that when it's Star Wars and you've got Disney and you've got
$500 million?
Essentially an unlimited budget. Can you give them that pass?
You and I don't. I mean, we haven't, right? We've been pretty critical about the speeders, and we started seeing some of the faded type of backgrounds, the Halo seeming maybe showing its age, or maybe it's just not working as well for this series. But then again, you get other scenes where it's absolutely rocking. Like the Rancor scene was actually really, really, really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Skywalker looked amazing. So you have a lot of these things that really, really work really well. But then you have things that fell short. And again, you've only got a certain amount of budget, and it's not like they're just going to let you go over budget, right? So you spend the budget where you can, you're going to focus things, and you're going to take shortcuts here and there, right? But I think in general, the visuals fell a little short. And I'm sorry, the Bantha was just, ugh.
Too slow?
No,
Wait, what are you talking about?
No, when he's feeding him the meat, and you can actually see it like chewing with his.
Oh,
clearly,
you're talking about. So the practical effects. I was going to bring that up. Like, I mean, it's a practical effect. There were plenty of them. I think that were kind of like, just okay. Grogu had some moments in there. We had the little rat catcher droid that was in there.
Grogu. No, I didn't really see anybody talk about this, but so whenever Luke is training him, and he's jumping around the rocks, like his left arm is like, like limping the entire time, like
because that's where the wire is coming up. That's the pole that's holding him up.
Oh man, it was just I cringed a little bit there. I can't watch this. I can't watch this part. And Stephanie was like, something doesn't look right with him. I'm like, pretty sure it's that arm. I think he had a stroke.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I think the practical effects were good. I mean, I know we were probably split on the Hutts and how those came out. I liked them. Yeah, I thought they were okay. I actually thought they were good.
They were passable.
Passable. Is that a word?
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. We got the dark saber,
and you can't argue. Yeah, you can't argue too much with his little sponge there of a animal. making sure he gets all of the
Oh yeah, sweat
moisture.
between the creases.
Yeah, that's right.
The
Lifts up
Scorpionic
his
droids
flap.
were cool,
The Scorpionics were really cool. Yeah,
right? The visuals
really
there
cool.
were good. So again, probably more highs than lows, but there definitely were some lows. In
the makeup for Chrysanthemum, that outfit, spot on, except for his janky foot. But he was just amazing otherwise. They got that
Yeah.
character perfect in every way. That
Yeah.
character was absolutely perfect.
Machete was really good. Good seeing him again. The Rancor was good. We talked about that. I enjoyed all those moments of the Rancor. I think that's where they blew most of their budget and probably had to, given they had already hyped it up and said, "Oh yeah, he's going to ride a Rancor." Great.
Right.
Now we got to deliver on that. So yeah, I thought the effects were pretty good, honestly, even if it had some shortcomings at times. Okay, well, let's move on from the attack and let's just kind of wrap it up now, because I think we're kind of at some of the stuff we've already talked about. So, okay, so I got a question for you. If someone said, "Hey, what is the book?" That's a loaded question. What is the book of? I've never seen Star Wars, and I've heard a lot about this thing called the Book of Boba Fett. In your own words, 10 words or less. No, in your own words, what is the Book of Boba Fett about?
Oh man, that's a really challenging one. I guess it would be picking up where the character left off at the end of Return of the Jedi and his journey to, I guess, not rebuild himself, but it is about Boba Fett. Like, we had a question here, like, who's the story about? The story is about Boba Fett. It's still clear to me that it's all Boba Fett. Like, and if you look at the entire series as a whole.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I think so.
Yeah. But I think it's picking up for the character and showing the rising from the ashes of sorts of Boba Fett and changing his attitude and finding a different way and just creating a new path for himself, kind of breaking his shackles, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How would you summarize it? Now that you made me do the hard part.
See, maybe you should do the show notes next time, buddy. Oh, okay.
Or I should at least read them a little more.
Right. Do your homework. No, I think the easy answer. So yes, I skipped over the first question because I thought we kind of hit it, but yeah, who is this story about? I think it's hard. I think that's a complex question or a complex answer to be fair, but at the end of the day, it is simply about, it is about Boba Fett. You may get diverted at some point and think, where the heck did this go? But they'll bring it back around. So I think it is about Boba Fett. So from that perspective, I think it's fine to say this is the Book of Boba Fett. What was this story about? What were they trying to tell us during this story? And I think for me, it is a story about rebirth. It is a story about growing and escaping your past, growing beyond how removing yourself from your past, removing yourself from the history that's there, the legacy of your parent, the sins of the father, right? All of that stuff. And at the core, that is a very it's Star Wars storytelling, right? We've seen there's plenty of examples of this starting with Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker, that relationship there. But it is about a character who is rebirthed, almost literally coming out of the womb there from the sands, rising from the ashes, rising up from the dead, and trying to make himself better. It's about character growth, and to that, I would say, I think they did a good job. Like, you may not like where the character went. You may call him soft. I love the fact that he made that comment there at the very end in chapter 7 about, we all get a little soft as we get older. That's a very true statement, whether you like it or not. It's just what happens. I can tell you firsthand. But I think it is about his character just evolving, and I think they did a good job of him evolving. Again, going back to the emotional piece of it, I think they did a good job of giving us that and making us believe that he was now a better person. Now, that said, I get where people are like, but this isn't the character I wanted. Well, guess what? You're not the writer. And I keep going back to this, and I'm not going to get a soapbox, but I will say, the more I've, been doing this, and I talked about Ryan and his show. He does a Screen podcast, and they had those directors on there, and they had the writers on for the latest movie, and it was really eye opening. I definitely recommend people go listen to that, just from the creative perspective. But it reaffirmed some things for me in that a lot of times these guys are hired to tell a story. They will pitch the story so they can get sign off on it, right? They can't go blow up Coruscant or do things like that. But for the most part, they're given the freedom to go tell the story that they want to tell, because these are the professionals. Whether you like it or not, you're not doing this job. They've hired these people. They're the ones that are out there. They're going to tell this story, and they're going to do it the best way they can. They're going to personalize every story. They honestly, they are conscious of fans and what fans may want. But like Rian Johnson, he's going to go tell the story he wants to tell, and it's up to him to sell us on it. And you may not like it, but that's just the way it goes. And at some point, we just kind of have to accept all of that.
Right. And there's a responsibility, I think, for the rest of the producers and things like that to make sure that it's something that they want to put in front of fans, right? So, and that's their responsibility to say, okay, we think this will work, or we like this direction, or, to shape that as well within the context of what the writer wants to do. But yeah, the writer, I agree that the writer is going to do what interests them, right? How they see these characters and how they want to see them change. But the shape of the show or the movie in general falls on the producers and directors and things like that of how they cater to that story.
Yeah. And I'm not saying people don't make mistakes, and certain decisions are better and we just have to accept everything. No, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that this story is about Boba Fett becoming a good guy. I mean, you can call it, I don't think he's an anti-hero either. At least not at the end of this chapter. I mean, he's out there in the streets with the people, right? He's a man of the people now, and he's out there taking gifts and bowing to them and, all that. So he is a good character now. That's a complete transformation of where he was at the end of Return of the Jedi. Whether you like it or not, it's for you kind of to decide. And that's who he is. And we just and again, that goes back to this. So my overall kind of criticism of this, and it's really, apart from the emotional piece, the other overall criticism I would have that kind of maybe summarizes everything is, this series made us have to just accept some things. Like, we couldn't dwell on the fact that we weren't getting certain pieces, or things were just happening and we weren't getting a lot of, backstory on it. We just had to roll with it. You know what I mean? Like, it was coming at us, and we accepted it. We moved on, and, we're back we're back to Mando and Din together, or Mando and Grogu together. We're back with Boba Fett and Fennec Shan now ruling over Tatooine or Mos Espa, and I don't know where they go with this, but that's the story.
Yeah, and again, if I had to kind of rephrase what my thought was, I think it's Boba Fett rewriting his legacy, I think is what that is, and trying to reshape the legacy that he's formed of how he's viewed in the galaxy, and now how he wants to be viewed moving forward. Mm-hmm. Now he wants to be remembered. And I think this is something, and he talked about, as you get older, you get soft, but the older you get, the more you think about legacy. What is it that you leave behind?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a couple of different times in different contexts, but that becomes very important as you get into later stages of life. Usually after your 50s, but usually your 60s or 70s, you're always like, okay, well, what have I left? And that's why they get really involved with grandkids. And from your career-wise, once you get into your 50s, you're like, okay, I've got to make my mark now, because only so many years left, right? Yeah. So legacy becomes very important of how are you going to be remembered, and what are you going to leave behind, and how are you going to feel about how you lived your life when it becomes towards the end of your days. And it's something that everybody comes to. And when you view it from that lens, it's something that eventually we will all be able to understand a little bit better.
Yeah. And it was his time with the Tuscans that made him realize all that, Right. Hopefully that wasn't lost on anybody. At the end of the day, this transformation wasn't because he survived. Transformation happened because he was taken in for the first time ever in his life, right? He found a family.
Yeah. Yeah. And he allowed himself to be a part of it. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, my legacy is this show. That's all I got. No, I'm kidding. I hope I'm blessed that it is, honestly. So, bad joke. Okay. I don't know if we have anything else. I mean, I guess the last question on here is, did you enjoy the series, and are you looking forward to a season 2? Should they ever do one?
I don't need a season 2, I think. Did I enjoy the series? Yeah. Overall, I would take it over not having it. Absolutely. And there were moments of it that I thought were absolutely fantastic. And you wouldn't have them if you didn't have the series. So if you like those moments, you can't say you didn't want the series, because that's what you got, right? But do I need a season 2 for Boba Fett specifically? I mean, it depends on what the story is, I guess. You really can't say yes or no.
Yeah, we got to define what season 2. What is season 2, right? I mean, that's
right. Yeah, I mean, and that's
we don't know.
Right. I mean, that was kind of like what we were left off of season 2 of Mandalorian, right? Without Grogu, what is the show? Does he go back to doing bounty hunting? And we kind of got those answers already.
Yeah.
So when we get into season 3, we kind of pick right back up where we left off, which is when we get towards season 3 hype, we'll have to talk about whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I think a lot of it's just what stories they want to tell. And if it's more of on Tatooine and the struggles of managing Mos Espa, no, I don't want that.
No, I don't either.
But is it more? But again, is it more of this overarching story where they bring Boba Fett in to do something else, and Boba has his own story to tell going into that to feed that? Sure, and that might be something that might be interesting to see. But,
I'm
I'm not a story writer, so
exactly. I'm not either. I would say, did I enjoy the series? Heck yeah, I enjoyed the series. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I really enjoyed watching it. I look forward to it every week. I was staying up to 2 a.m. Well, I'm always up at 2 a.m., but I would tune in at 2 a.m.
Right.
I had a routine that I had, right? I would get cookies and milk, sit down on the couch, just, dip my cookies, eat that. I mean, it was a thing that I was doing. I really enjoyed it. So from that perspective, I would say, yes, I absolutely enjoyed the series. Do I want a season 2? Again, you define what season 2 is. If it's Tatooine, like I said, and it's the politics of Tatooine, not interested. If it's Boba Fett saying, "Hey, I'm going to hand this off to somebody else," Cobb Vanth, I don't know if that's really. More I thought about that, I'm like, I don't know if that really makes any sense. But if he hands that off to somebody else and he gets somehow pulled into this bigger story, I think something has to come to him. I think if he does go into this. Let's say maybe there is a scenario where he just sits into this role, and the very beginning of it, we catch up with him, and he's been in this role. It's a routine. It's not who he is. He's not happy about it. Like he's fine. He's doing it, but this isn't really who he is or what he really wants to do, right? And then somewhere the war or some conflict comes knocking on his door that he feels like he needs to leave and go join Mando or join, whoever else is involved at that point. Then I think that will be a way to kind of get them to kind of have both ways, so it doesn't feel like that. But I'm just not interested in a, rule with respect on Tatooine for a full season. Where's the action in that? And I say that, but we've gotten other stories that I didn't think would work out, and they did. So now, if it's Boba Fett and the crew, Black Chrysanthemum, the mods, the Rat Catcher. Fennec Shan, if they're out as a team now, as a family, if that's his tribe and he's out roaming the galaxy doing I don't know what, I'm in. Give me a season 2 of it. I'm fine with that. I'd love to see where they go next and that dynamic of that whole thing, right? Are the mods ever going to get fruit? I don't know. Those are the questions that we were left with. Does Black Kate always take the fruit? I don't know. We'll find out.
There you have it.
Of all that 2 hours we end on Black Chrysanthemum and whether or not he gets to keep all the fruit.
I mean, so I think the other part is that what if, let me pose this out to you. So what if Boba and Fennec, and we'll throw Chrysanthemum in there too.
Okay.
What if they leave like, okay, we're leaving Tatooine under the control of the mods while we go help Din Djarin?
Yeah.
Does that sit okay with you? Or is that just like
it seems lazy.
Yeah.
It seems predictable. But I don't know. The
what
whole
else do you do?
They're the exciting part,
right?
The whole chapter 7 was predictable, and I said that. I mean, it was fun. I loved the hell out of that episode, but it was pretty predictable. But I mean, it would be the easy way out, and it's kind of like with Cara Dune. I think we speculated that at some point they would get called upon, and it didn't really pan out. But again, the battle came to them. They weren't expecting it to, but it came to them.
Right.
So yeah, I would be fine with that, I guess.
Cool.
Sure.
And then I guess the only other question we have to really ask ourselves is, when does the Pelimoto Majordomo comedy sitcom start?
I'm telling you, it would work.
Yeah.
I don't think they would do it. I dare Lucasfilm and Disney to do it, but I don't think they have the balls to do it.
And I dare them to have a supporting minor character as a furry Jawa.
There you go. He's the pet and the lover.
It's that promiscuous Jawa neighbor that likes to come over and hit on Peli every once in a while.
Yeah.
She's like, you Jawas.
Yeah, I'm working on myself right now.
That's right. Yeah.
Star Wars pals. Okay. All right. We got anything else before we get out of here?
You want to do some shout outs?
Sure. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So we had a great turnout tonight for the live stream. And again, we do this, if you're listening to the podcast or on Patreon. We do this on a live stream. We posted the links out there. Usually we've started to do this on Thursday. We started doing Patreon on Sunday. So we'd love for you to come out to us on YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. But some of the folks we had in the chat today, Stephanie, Dante, Jeff, Jonathan, Tuan, Lauren, Alex, and big thanks to Alex again for the video there. Headless Ned Stark, got it right that time, didn't fumble it. Who else do we have in here? We had Qui-Gon Jay, Hard Countered, and all of these Cantina Cast people. What is all this stuff? Okay.
Oh, that was me.
Yeah, right. And then there was one more. Oh, SP, Stargate Pioneer.
Ash was in here.
Oh, yeah, Ash. Yep, there she is. I just scrolled down a little ways. Yeah. And yeah, a bunch of lurkers in the background. So everyone, thank you so much. If I missed your name, I apologize. But thanks for coming out and supporting the show. If you'd like to look at Patreon, patreon.com/thecantinacast. Again, that's where we post our, we recorded a show on Sunday that was more, what did we talk about? I guess it was really about what's coming up next, right?
We were kind of speculating about what would be next for all the characters.
Yeah, we kind of did a flip flop. Usually this kind of show would have been on Patreon, and that one would have been on the main feed. But we kind of flipped it back and forth there. And as Dante said, huge thanks to Femi Taylor for the congratulations, and thanks to Alex for paying, I guess, for that.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so if you want to check out some of the Patreon content, again, it's more of a somewhat unfiltered, but we do a lot of other different things too. We review some of the comics and things like that. We don't do always on the main show. And we do that. We try to do that every week. So patreon.com/CantinaCast. We'd love for you to join us in Discord, eargluemedia.com/Discord. We also post an event in there for the links to the shows. So you always get those. If you're a Patreon, you get a dedicated channel. You can check out other shows as well. And if you want to listen to any of our other great shows on the network, eargluemedia.com is where you can find everything from Scream to Barrel House Whiskey to Film Appraisers, Petticoats of Poppies. I'm missing one in there. What am I missing?
Barrel House?
Yeah, I got Barrel House. Yeah.
Film Appraisers? Scream?
Yeah.
Petticoats?
Scream. Yeah, Petticoats. I mean, I got them all. Yeah. Maybe I'm thinking of Basement.
Oh, ouch. That one hurt.
I know. I got you on Sunday too. I'm so sorry. That's twice in 1 week.
I'm busy.
But anyway, so we'd love for you guys to join us in all the different ways. We do appreciate y'all coming out and saying hi.
Hey, and do me a favor, if you guys are within the sound of my voice, if you could go out to iTunes and if you've not had a chance to leave us a review, hopefully it's a good one. We'll take bad ones, but yeah, please go out there and drop. I know we've gotten we picked up a lot of new listeners with the Book of Boba Fett, and maybe haven't had a chance to go out there and show your support, but more than the money, that probably goes a long ways too. So yeah, it would be nice if you could leave us a nice review, and we'll read them on the air as well. So there's an incentive for you to get your name out called out.
Yeah. And again, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button and hit subscribe and the little bell so you get all the notifications when we're going to go live. That way you never miss a show of us making a fool out of ourselves live.
Yep.
Never know what'll happen.
Fools we are. And speaking of fools, okay, so next week we'll come back and we are going to start with part 1 of The Fallen Star. We need to figure out the course of how we're going to break that book down. It'll be at least 2 episodes. It may be 3 or possibly even 4, depending on how we want to dissect it. But we'll get
14.
back to, I'd love to do 14. But we'll do that. And then we've got some shows that I teased back in December that are just now going to be able to resurface because we got, other stuff that came up. But there is the rule of 2. I know I keep teasing that one, but I definitely want to do it. I've got some thoughts around how I want to structure it, which should be exciting. And we've got other stories too. So we'll fill in the time with the backlog of ideas that we've got, plus the breakdown of the High Republic stuff that we put away or tabled here recently.
You say all that, but then we've got Kenobi coming up, and we've got Celebration coming up too.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like we got to, so we got to get all that done before we get, because once we get into May, we're done.
Yeah, we have 3 months to figure it out.
Yep.
It seems like forever, folks, but these things go by really fast.
Yeah.
And there's always something that pops up that we weren't expecting that you have to reprioritize and shelve something for a while. You really wanted to get out right away.
And I don't know when it'll air, but we are going to record an episode with our friends over at Tarkin's Top Shelf. So we are going to be talking about the High Republic on that show. I won't spoil what we're going to talk about just yet. But definitely we'll be advertising that and kind of letting you know when that airs. So Jonesy and I will both be out there very soon. So I'm expecting in the next 2 weeks is when that will probably drop. We're going to record next weekend, so maybe 3 weeks. I don't know. I don't know
Right.
what the release is and how much they've got in their backlog right now to release. But
Yeah. And if there happens to be a live cast or something, we'll, of course, send the link out to everyone. But yep, should be exciting. We love doing shows with those guys. It's been a while since we've done one with them.
Yeah, I think it's been since Celebration. Well, I had Becca on the show for
Right.
the,
Yeah, you guys did the alumni thing. Yeah.
the alumni show that I never did another one of, which I really enjoyed. I spent a lot of time on the logo and never used it.
From a certain, yeah, that's an awesome logo, actually. And from a certain point of view, we still got to.
Oh, that. So we got to talk because I do want to bring that one back.
Yeah.
We've got tons of people that need a voice and people that don't. Okay, guys. With that, we will. Oh, I got the credits up to date again, so you're welcome. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.